I'll put it where it needs to go. Okay. I'll come by and pick it up my hand. I'll get it fixed. I know. It was a two-story. Not quite sold it. 2.5 times. So cheap. Back out. I know Mr. Turner was getting pretty feeble. He was in a rest home more than he was at home.
And then assistant, I went to his funeral today.
Did you?
Carbon's been just been sent to the
It's just a matter of something happens.
Yeah, I got it.
We call the meeting of the Town Council of Whipple Mills to order at 6:30 on March the 18th. Glad to see such a large crowd here. I wish this had this kind of participation each and every week. At this time, we'll have our invocation. Dear Heavenly Father, be with us, guide us as we conduct the town's business. Give us wisdom and give us strength to do the thing that is best suited for our entire community. In Jesus' heavenly name we pray. Amen. Amen. This time we'll do the pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those of you who haven't been before, we're certainly glad that you came. We hope you will return each month. Remind you that we are being live streamed on live TV, so any conversation that takes place is heard in the background. So be sure and keep the individual conversations down so that what is important to be said, not that you're not being important, everything you say, but let the group do its speaking. And if you're planning to speak tonight, we have an electron up here to sign in to make sure that you are who you are and what you're going to speak on. You have 3 minutes to discuss any topic. At this time, I'll ask for the approval of the agenda. Councilman McGowan has made a motion and Councilman Wright has seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor? We'll move right into a public hearing. We have a special use permit on 120 and 210 Jones Road.
Mr. Anderson, do you want to say anything about it being quasi judicial or?
Yes, ma'am, I'll do that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the town attorney, and I apologize to the mayor for almost being late tonight. I did about more than a man ought to try to do in one afternoon, and I burned up the highway getting here. Fortunately, the chief didn't have any troopers out there watching. So we deduct a little bit off our bill, about 50 cents maybe. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, as the town attorney in these in certain kinds of zoning cases, land use cases, we do. There's a class of cases that are called quasi-judicial hearings, and quasi-judicial means sort of like a court, and it does not have obviously the total formality of a court proceeding. I've told people sometimes it's somewhere between Judge Judy and Johnson County Superior Court, but we have certain rules and regulations that apply, and among those rules and regulations, these are things that are set down in statutes and in court decisions. Among the things that apply are the testimony in a quasi-judicial case, such as a special use permit. Testimony is sworn testimony, and it's not just, fanciful opinions, if somebody doesn't like something, it's kind of facts that you know of your own knowledge, or if you're an expert, engineer, surveyor, or whatever, land planner, whatever things that you know out of your, expert, knowledge and training. The other thing that we have to do in these special use cases is that we have to, first inquire of the members of the council whether anyone, has any bias or prejudice in favor of any party to this application that would prevent them from giving a fair and honest decision after the hearing. And, if you do, the answer is a yes. If you don't, and you feel that you ought to proceed in this hearing, the answer is no, you do not have any such bias or prejudice.
No.
Is it? No from everybody then. The other thing is, the law prohibits what's called ex parte communications. That is, somebody who is an applicant or an opponent of an application of this sort, having contacts with the council members, expressing their opinions prior to this hearing and outside of this hearing room. And so what we have to do is, one way, if sometimes people don't know that's a rule and violate it without even realizing it. So sometimes what we do is cure that defect by asking the council members if anyone has had a communication of that sort with them, and they can disclose it for the record here, and that will cure the defect in the fact that it occurred. So I'll ask if the council members, have there been any of these ex parte communications?
No.
Okay. Well, Mr. Mayor, we're ready to proceed.
All
You may,
right, then.
Call the witnesses, and people who want to testify should stand up and let the clerk swear them, if you would.
Might want to stand.
If anyone is planning to speak on the matter, you would need to be sworn in.
We don't know, but she said swimming, so.
We are. We're going to get my Bible to read it. You might not be able to get back.
Well, you can do it without the Bible. You can say, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give truth and
Okay, hold on, we got
matter?
another one that was.
Okay. Yes, we're gonna. Have you all signed the sheet if you're planning to speak? Okay, when your time comes to speak, be sure that you sign your name on this. And, if you will just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. You swear to tell the truth. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And nothing but the truth. So help me God. Just please remember to sign in when you speak.
Thank you, Leanna. So this, before us tonight is a special use permit for, located at 120 and 210 Jones. It is to allow the keeping of livestock on the property. There is currently horses on the property, but, and they were grandfathered in with the county ordinance, and it is changing ownership. Hopefully it already has. So successful. So they would just like to continue to keep horses and maybe a cow or two, but so just it requires, our code requires a special use permit to allow for that keeping. The zoning is consistent with that, and then the regulations on it is that there can be no more than one hoofed animal per acre. So combined, this is approximately 32 acres, which would give them up to 32, even though I don't think that is their intent. But they are also here tonight if you guys have questions for the applicant.
Anybody have any questions? The recommendation of the planning board was to approve this.
Correct.
Do I hear a motion that,
You're gonna have it, you're in there, people.
is there anyone here who would like to speak in regard to this matter?
I will.
All right,
I need to sign.
Come
the paper.
forward, please.
Yes. Where's the paper? Right there, okay.
right over here.
No,
There you go.
thank you, sir.
You're welcome,
pen back.
You can leave it up there.
Thank you.
And were you in the room when the clerk administered the oath?
Yes, sir. Yes, I stepped in. I'm Janet Corbett Holmes. I live at 171 Oswald Spine Road, lived there most of my life. And I just don't feel like that many animals inside the city limits. If you can put one animal per acre, that's 32 animals. That's a lot of smell. We've lived in Duplin County. We've been around pig farms, hog farms, turkey farms, cows, and everything else. That's a lot of smell for this small area. And if we want to continue to grow, we don't need that in Wilson's Mills. Now, I agree. I grew up here, lived here most of my life. And yes, my daddy was part farmer. But times have changed. And inside of a town that has already made it where you're not supposed to have livestock in the town of the Wilson's Mills, then I believe that that's too many. Now, if he wants to cut it back to a few horses, maybe a horse an acre, or no, actually that's 32 horses. That's way too much too. But I'll agree to like 5, maybe 10 horses, but that's it. I've lived in towns I've lived in Denver, Colorado, where you have no flies, no mosquitoes, no anything, and no animals within a town that wants to grow. So if Wilson Mills wants to grow, I think it's a bad idea. So that's my opinion. That's how I feel. And like I say, it's not because I haven't lived here all my life, but I have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Yes, please. I have to sign the sheet too. Okay, my name is Kay Corbett, and I live at 690 Oswald Pond Road. My husband and I actually have 2 horses on the property already that we help caretake the property. We did when the Halls lived there, and we do now. There has never been any complaint. At one time, there were 10 horses and 4 mini ponies out there, and there was never a complaint about it. The property was kept up. There was no smell or anything that anyone ever complained about. So I feel that this should be passed. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Anyone else? Speaker.
I'm Weldon Gammon, and my wife and I, we're the applicants. And, we purchased this land just because it was such a beautiful spot. And we've had horses for 20 years. My wife's had horses her whole life. And, you know, one of the things that we've been around farms where, you know, there's so many horses, it's just a muddy mess. And that's not what we're going to be. And, you know, that's why we wanted such a nice, beautiful area out there is, you know, so, you know, it's not going to be populated or overpopulated. And, you know, we want to keep the area pretty. I think our neighbors would much rather have us there than, you know, a lot of residential, high density residential area. And, anyway, we look forward to moving here and living here, and you know, hope everyone will come by and meet us. Thank you.
Sir, could I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
What is the approximate number of horses or hoofed animals you plan to have on the property at any time?
I would say That's hard to say, because my wife may want to get more. You know, we are probably going to bring 5 to 6 of our own horses on there right away. But, you know, we might bring more. There's a lot of grass to mow, so we might put a little bit more under pasture, just so we're not having to mow so much grass. So,
Ken,
yes, sir.
do you intend to board horses or just have your own there?
Um,
Can you hear my question back there? There's nothing more frustrating than getting an answer without the question. Okay.
We currently have, as Kay was up here earlier, her and her husband currently have 2 horses there. And so we're going to continue to keep them because they help maintain the place. Right now, our plan isn't to board horses, but you know, if we do, it may be some friends of ours. One of the reasons we're moving down here is the barn that we're at in Raleigh. They're getting ready to sell that land. My wife actually is barn manager there, so you know, she works and she's been around a place where it does have a lot of animals. There's over 40 some horses there, but you know, we're not planning on bringing in and just having a whole bunch of horses there. If anything, we'll board, you know, horses from my friends. Like if that barn closes down, we might bring a few of their horses here. But yeah,
So what's a good guess as to the maximum you would ever have there? I know I'm not trying to lock you into something. I'm just getting your ideas.
my guess is 10, but if I put up to 20 acres under pasture, I'd like to go ahead and keep what the town ordinance allows, or what the Johnston County ordinance allows, is one horse or one hoof animal per acre. But yeah, I don't have 32 acres of pasture, so I'm never going to put 32 horses there. So
Well, I have a question for you, sir.
yes, sir.
The town council action can do one of 2 things: approve with conditions, or deny. So obviously you're not gonna put a horse in your house. There's some land laid out there. There's a pond there that I'm aware of, and a couple of outbuildings. So I'm asking, would it be to your approval to say the conditions would be not to exceed 20 animals?
We would agree to that.
Okay, so I think that kind of helps everybody in thinking that we don't have overcrowded stables, pastures, whatever. Most of us here grew up on this farmland, and we're aware of cows and horses and hogs and everything else you can imagine. So,
No problem.
anyone else like to speak regarding this matter? We've stipulated a condition here, which is part of what we can do. Do I hear a motion that we approve or deny this, and if we approve it with the conditions not to exceed 20 animals?
I make a motion, we approve it with conditions, 20 maximum.
Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I see.
Motion is made by Councilman McGowan, seconded by Councilman Eason, to approve this special use permit not to exceed 20 animals.
Thank you, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We move forward. Thank you. Ms. Valerie, you want to move forward with ordinance amendment to change the zoning for Gray Wolf?
Are there any people that were here about this matter that could move out and let people about the Gray Wolf move in, because there are about 5 or 6 people outside that are.
All right.
speak about that.
Gray Wolf?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's-
If there's anyone here who was just for the first special use who's not planning to stay for the meeting, we got a lot of people who are not seated. Obviously, town hall will have to expand at some point in time. If you want to stay and continue to observe, you certainly can do so.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if the people from Gray Wolf were able to hear my comments from the hall about quasi judicial hearings. I don't know if you all heard any of that, but basically, again, I'll make the comment that this is, I believe, a conditional use zoning, isn't it? Is that right, Valerie?
It is, but only, yes, the zoning's before us tonight, but not the special use
Not the permit, not the
So
permit.
I'm-
Okay,
Yes,
good enough.
a development plan will have to
They takes
follow.
care of that
Yes,
then.
sir.
Don't have to make them again now. Thank you, ma'am.
Well, just to give a brief overview of what we have before us, this is a property, it's approximately 78 acres. It was annexed into the town September 24th, 2018, after a voluntary petition. It did go before planning board on January 28th. It is outside of our main town limits, outside of the ETJ, approximately 1.5 miles. So they're requesting to rezone to a R10 conditional use district to allow for a planned unit development, which essentially is saying that they will meet the overall density of the R10, but in exchange, there can be give and take. The lot sizes can be smaller than the 10,000 square foot, but the overall combined has to meet the R10 density. The uses would be limited to single-family, detached housing, and townhomes. It is currently still actually county residential agricultural, and it is surrounded by county agricultural residential. And so, like I said, tonight, it's just the rezoning that's before us. If this was approved, they have 1 year to get the special use permit. Otherwise, this would go away.
Anyone wishing to speak at this time?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the town council. My name is Jason Wenzel. I'm an attorney here in Johnson County. I was here last month, but I want to first, I've got some maps here that I'm going to go through. Planning has already kind of told you the basis of where this property is located. I'll refer during my presentation to the map. I think I've got it memorized enough that I can point to, or at least suggest to you where I'm referring to for this project that is off of Cole Road. It is located just south of the 70 Business 70 exchange. We are here in support of the zoning map amendment application that was submitted back on December 20th of 2018. As was indicated, the planning board has already unanimously approved this request back on January 28th of 2019. At the outset, I'd like to ask that all exhibits, including the application and the site plans, the zoning maps, ETJ, and sewer illustrations, and staff reports and exhibits be entered into evidence for your consideration. And further, I'd ask that you take judicial notice of both your 2030 Wilson's Mills Community Plan and your Wilson's Mills Capital Improvement Plan, which I'll be referring to throughout our presentation. What we are requesting is rezoning, conditional rezoning from RA 40 to R10. With me tonight is one of the principals of Gray Wolf Development, Wade Corbett. His office is located right up the street, really, right by the Johnson County Airport. Local developer has undertaken several other projects in Johnson County. I point that out because having served on the County Board of Adjustment, it's important to know that the owner is here and is available to answer any questions you may have about our request. Also with us is the engineer for the project, Stephen Carson. He was here last month when we requested this public hearing. He is also available should you have any more technical questions about what the request is. But I would like to start off by referencing both the difference between where we currently are at RA 40, which is residential agricultural, which I think is important, and what we're requesting, which is R10, which is medium density residential. The ordinance, which is 30-66, which defines the RA 40, says that it is to provide for low-density residential development, to encourage the continuance of agricultural use, and to encourage continued use for farming in harmony with the suitability of the land, accessibility to major activity centers and transportation systems. So if you've got that as the basis of where we're at currently, that allows for single-family developments with a minimum of 40,000 square feet, with 100-foot wide or 150 feet deep lots, minimum setbacks of 30 on the front, 30 on the rear, 20 on the side, with a height no more than 40. What we're requesting is R10 under the ordinance, which is 30-69, that allows for medium density residential to ensure that the land in the residential area is developed and maintained with appropriate density, and very similar to the other definition, to provide an environment with accessibility to major activity centers and transportation systems. The difference primarily is that a single family dwelling has a minimum of 10,000 square feet as opposed to 40, RA 40, 40,000, R10, 10,000. But it also allows a two-family dwelling or two townhouse units of 15,000 square feet. It's a 75-foot wide and 100-foot deep, again, as opposed to 100-foot wide and 150-foot deep. Setbacks are very similar, 30 to the front, rear 25, only a difference of 5 feet. Side is 10 as opposed to 20, and a height no more than 35. So not a huge difference, at least in the rest of the setbacks and the width and depth, but again, that square footage makes a big difference for the proposed development we're going to be talking about. So to these illustrations, first we have what I'm going to refer to as rezoning exhibit number 1, and it shows the subject property in the white right there. Particularly, I point this out because there are two properties, both to the north and to the south, that are in, I believe they're in purple on this map, that are already owned R10. So our property is more or less in the middle of two properties, two larger development properties that are already have the R10 designation, and they're both annexed into the town as well, just like our property is. And I think that's important when you go back to the actual definitions, that the RA 40 has in at least two places in the definition agricultural use. Well, any kind of housing development isn't going to have that agricultural use, and this medium density designation of R10 is much more in line with why we asked for it to be annexed into the town last year. So if you look at your ordinance 30-4 as a guide, what is the purpose of the zoning designation? It's to accomplish compatible development of land within the planning jurisdiction of the town to best promote a list of things, including the health, safety, and general welfare, to promote the efficiency, energy conservation, and economy and development, and adequate provisions for transportation, public water, sewage, schools, and other public requirements. The second map I'm going to show, if I can do this without knocking it down here, should be the ETJ map. So again, our subject property for uniformity is in white, and you will see the Wilson's Mills city limits in green out to the east. Now, the previous R10 parcels that I showed on map number 1 were in purple on that map. They're light brown here. Same thing, just different color. And I would note that the darker blue is Clayton's ETJ, and it's certainly creeping up on the town, and it's already encroached the 70 corridor. I think that's important when I start talking about the sewer designation, that when I reference 30-4 saying that it's the town's council's job to promote the land within its planning jurisdiction, right? So that now that we're annexed into the town, we are within the planning jurisdiction. So the third map, which I'll show, and I'll go back to any of these if you have questions on them, but one that I know is constantly being referenced and mentioned is the sewer capacity argument. So the green dashes show the existing sewer line, and as you probably know, that runs right along 70 business. That pink area is the general business designation, which makes sense. That's where the sewer's tracking. And I don't think it's any issue that sewer is already at capacity or maybe even over capacity at the time, already at present. So the proposed sewer, that in order for this developer to get their project off the ground at the R10, should you grant that, is the purple line, the dash purple line towards this general area, I believe. That would be a force main line that they're going to have to put in. Eventually, the future sewer would be a gravity line. That would be the yellow, which you see more or less closely parallels, but it is allowing it to get up to where the Cole Road property is, and including up to eventually where that other R10 previously annexed tract is located. So back to the purpose of the zoning of 34, and this being a rezoning request, I mentioned that under 30-4, it's to promote the efficiency, the energy conservation, and economy and development, and to facilitate the adequate provision of transportation, public water, sewer, and schools and other public requirements. In order to get this project done, Graybull is going to have to put in a sewer line that's going to cost north of $1 million. It's going to be sizable in their investment. And the reason why we're doing this kind of in a two-part process is if we don't have the zoning, then we're not going to spend all the money on the development plans to be able to come forth with the development plan that your ordinance require. I specifically mentioned the two adopted plans that the town has already come up with, both the Wilson's Mills 2030 Community Plan, which under the Water and Sewer Service on page 39, it says the town shall encourage new development requiring sewer extension within its planning area to be annexed, which they have done. The action plan that you adopted back in 2006 mirrors that. It also says, here it is, section, thank you, section 8.5, it says that the town shall equitably distribute cost of extending public sewers and infrastructure to those who benefit. Here you've got a developer willing to outlay that cost, taking the risk that somebody's going to buy the product they're putting on the market. But it also says the town will pursue the most cost-effective alternatives to effectively meet its public utility and infrastructure requirements and needs. So the capital improvement plan, which I'm sure all of you are very familiar with, goes back about 10 years now. But the recommended improvements in section 3.1, the town residents and leaders were asked on their input of what was most important for the town to grow. And the top priority, as listed in your plan, was to provide sewer service within the town. So I think, at least from the zoning request and the authority to do so under 30-4, is certainly in line with where this sewer line is going to come into play. That capital improvement plan also references that Wilson's Mills does not have a large population, and so it should look at things that are economically feasible to serve the residents as to the sewer. So the timing of this, what does all this mean? You heard planning mention that this would be good. The conditional rezoning would be good for 1 year. The cost projections, we've got to run all those, but what the proposed plan would be as laid out in the application from December of 2018. We have to come back to the planning board with a development plan of what that's going to show. At least the projections would like to show plenty of open space, a dog park, an amenity center, all those things that would be in line with what the proposed development would be. And so I certainly, again, have both Wade and Stephen here to answer any questions you may have. But what we're asking for, I think I can sum up with two sentences. One, that the rezoning approval be granted to put it in line consistency with what is both to our north and to our immediate south with the neighboring property from RA 40 to R10. And secondly, that the sewer needs that this project is going to require would be put forth by the developer and will all be subject to the development plan once we submit that. Hopefully that wasn't too long and I was able to hit at least the high points, but does anybody have any questions for me or for either Wade or Steve?
You were talking about, you want to go to R10.
Yes, sir.
But you're talking about 5,000 square foot lots for houses.
I'm not sure I mentioned 5,000 square feet.
Well, in your paperwork.
Paperwork. You
In the
mentioned-
application.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So again, if per your ordinance, which I can put my hands on here in just a minute, under the R10, it has a grid, and the grid shows that depending on the use, the single-family dwelling is area of square feet of 10,000. A two-family dwelling or two townhouse units is 15,000. And then the note for multifamily housing or planned unit development, which was mentioned by planning, shows that 30,000 square feet for 3 units plus 5,000 square feet for each additional unit. So it really just depends on what the development plan is going to have in it. And depending on how many units are there, it depends on what the ultimate density would be. But that 5,000 number is the same number, again, if you have a multi-unit townhouse that's in, it's 30-69 medium density residential district R10.
Well, decisions like this are critically important to our town
Yes, sir.
and to this council. And there were a couple of interesting comments in here, or notes in here. One of them was the townhouse lot size was gonna be 1,200 square feet, and I think that should be edited to be 12,000 square feet, for one. And two is the minimum lot sizes should not be 5,000 square feet, but 10,000 square feet. Because we're dealing with 78 acres, of which, according to your chart, has been reduced by 19% or 14.93 acres. That is undesirable for construction. Therefore, that leaves 63 acres, and the application was originally for 350 houses. So if you can put 4 houses to the acre on 63 acres, that leaves us at 252, not 350.
I'll speak to that briefly. At 12,000 square foot townhouse lots, 24 foot wide on average for a townhouse lot, we have not made a determination as to the widths, obviously, at this point. That would be 500 foot deep townhouse lots at 12,000 square feet. So that just doesn't make a lot of feasible sense. One of the key things that we're looking for here, and as we've illustrated on some of our previous site plans, is we're pushing about 30% open space on this project as it sits, if everything works out the way we'd like to see it. At 30% open space, that means that we're not wasting extra amount of land to go towards lots. So if you can imagine, townhouse is approximately 24 foot wide. Typical townhouse lot is going to be about 80 foot deep. Correct me if I'm wrong. So you're talking about a 500 foot deep lot, which is over 5 times the amount of depth it should be. What that would do is it would eat into the open space, which means we can provide the amenity center, the pool, the fitness center, the dog parks, the 2 playgrounds, 2 picnic shelters, and community fire pit. And there's some frisbee golf in there too. So, you know, at the end of the day, we can do the larger lots. It's just, that doesn't really agree with our vision, which is making this something that is community with walkability. It just makes bigger lots essentially without any amenities. So our goal was to have a large amount of open space. So I guess the question we ask ourselves is, do we want that open space to go to each individual lot? So each individual property owner can have 420 additional foot deep lots, or do we want it to go to a playground or something like that? That's where our thought process is.
What does 10,000 square feet equate to in acres? Is that half an acre?
It's 43,560 square feet in an acre.
So that equates to 4 houses per acre.
Without any road.
But once again, keep in mind too, this is an aggregate between townhouses and single family residential. So that doesn't necessarily mean that's what single family residential is. It just means that the townhouses bring the average down. But overall, like I said, we're looking at a mixed use project with diversity, different product offerings. As you know, or most people know, there's a large demographic of people, both younger generation as well as the aging generation, that does not want large houses on large lots to either maintain or for whatever reason. So what we're trying to do is create diversity where you've got a little bit of everything. And we feel like we can do that, especially with the townhouse lots. It allows us to build a product that's not, I'm not going to say affordable housing is in low income housing, but affordable housing to where people actually from Wilson's Mills and Johnson County can afford it. Because right now, if you go out towards Flowers Plantation, other areas to the western part of the county, the average person is from here, can't even afford those houses anymore. So, just trying to create a product that the average person can afford with amenities that you can't get hardly anywhere else outside of Flowers Plantation.
Did you say some of them would be 500 foot deep?
Well, at 12,000 square foot lots, based off of the mayor's suggestion of making the townhouse lots 12,000 square feet, at a 24 foot wide townhouse lot, which is the average for a townhouse, that would require the lot to be 500 feet deep in order to equal 12,000 square feet. So
But in
that's
the
why-
application, it says that you can have 2 townhouses per 15,000 square foot lots. Is that not what it says?
It is, but we would, they would not be 2 townhouses continuous, that would be a duplex. We would do 5 to 6 townhouses continuous with a large break and open space around it, that would, if you factor that in, would be 12,000 square foot or 15,000 square foot an acre because it's surrounded by green space. So it's just taking green space away from the lots and giving it to the common area so that it can be utilized by everybody instead of being a narrow, long lot that it can't really be used for anything. The only thing you can do with a 24-foot wide lot that's 500 feet long is maybe, if you're good enough, Tiger Woods style golf or throw a baseball, but it'd be hard to do much else in that backyard.
Well, maybe I'm just, go ahead, Phil.
Your townhouses, the people own nothing but the house itself, so that would be 1,200 square foot. But the property that around it is kept up by the homeowners association. Outside the exterior of the town, that is kept up by the homeowners association. The only thing the homeowner actually owns is the existing structure, and his maintenance is on the inside, nothing on the outside. The rest of the land use on the outside is taken good of by the, and owned by the homeowner association or whoever. It's not owned by the property owner.
Maybe I'm just thick-headed and don't clearly understand. The townhouse is not what concerned me. What concerns me was the line item in here that said lot sizes can be 5,000 square feet for a single-family dwelling, and that's not what an R10 says. I think I'm in agreement, but I don't have a vote unless there's a tie, that we don't have a problem from what I've heard from this council in the past with rezoning from a R40 to a R10. But the things that seem to be implied in there are a little different to me, and I'd like that clearly understood, unless some of you fellows can explain it to me.
Well, the best way I can explain it is there's a difference between net acreage and gross acreage. So if you've got 30% open space on a 78-acre parcel, that accounts for quite a bit. What is that, 20 some odd acres? 24 acres would be open space, common area with walking trails. The way we've got this drawn out is sidewalks on both sides of the road and walking trails going around the entire circumference of the community. I think all in all, it's like 4 or 6 miles of sidewalks and walking trails. And so when you look at it from a net versus gross standpoint, you're correct. That is a recipe for a tremendous amount of lots. If we were getting that kind of density without open space, that would just not make absolutely no sense to pretty much anybody I imagine. Once again, our position is that we've got a tremendous amount of open space, and therefore it's not necessarily that we've got a ton of lots because the lot sizes are small. It's that we're condensing the lots to a smaller portion of the property so that we can have 24 acres of open space with amenities. So it's a net versus gross scenario.
Do you have a drawing of the anticipated layout?
We've got several renditions of different options and things that we've played with, but ultimately, the challenge is we can't get too deep into it without having further direction from this body because it costs us money every time we hypothesize a dream or a vision. So we're kind of at the same point now where we have to get to this point before we can really sit down and collect everything and know for sure what we're doing. The reality of it is, when you're talking about a clubhouse, a pool, a fitness center, and all the other amenities, in addition to $1 million+ and a sewer line that benefits the entire 70 business corridor, that's a lot of cost. And in order to create a community like that, it's going to require us to do things a little bit differently in regard of, I guess, what we're used to. But this is not a push to put as many houses on the ground as possible. If that was the case, we wouldn't be setting aside 24 acres for open space. And by the way, none of that is floodplain. All of that is usable acreage, 24 acres of usable space, and every square foot of it will be used to the best of it.
According to the chart that you've got here, that you gave us to look at, there's 15 acres of it you can't use. It's flood, it's poorly drained. Flooding and ponding, frequent flooding, poorly drained, frequent flooding, poorly drained. There's 15 acres of it, so that only leaves you 63 acres to do.
Well,
That's just based on
Now,
USGS soil.
the 63 acres, you said you were gonna have 19 acres or 24 acres for your green space? Does that include these 15 acres?
it does, but I can tell you from personal experience in hunting that property all season long this past year,
Yeah, but if-
with as much rain as we had, there's no
I
flood.
know that too, but if you look at the way that the town did the walking trail and the riding trail over at News River, you can't use it now. If it rains enough, it's gonna
But that's a-
flood and
that's
you
a
can't
flood.
use it. So it's
That's
gonna
it.
be the same thing with this.
That's in a FEMA designated floodplain. This is not in a FEMA designated floodplain, and it does not flood like the Neuse River does or like any other floodplain does. This is what I'm saying. So it is usable for walking trails without flooding. It is usable for playgrounds, open space, fields, all kinds of different things.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
How many, single-family dwellings are you planning to have? I know you said you've got townhomes and you've got single-family dwellings too, right?
Right.
So how many townhomes? No, I'm just trying to get a number. I know you haven't got it all planned out yet. But how many townhomes versus single-family
To answer the
dwellings?
question quickly, I'd say 66% to 33%. So for every
66%
for every
townhome?
2 single-family homes, I'd say 1 townhouse would be the goal here. Essentially, it's just trying to create diversity. We're not trying to make this 90% townhouses and a couple of single families. That's not the goal. It's simply to have diversified product. The other side of it is, truthfully, there's some personal motives to that too. And the reality of it is, with the parcel zone to the south is R10, which will be developed at some point. The parcel zone to the north, which is R10, which will be developed at some point. And our parcel, that's a lot of R10 detached, single-family residential houses to sell in a certain period. So having a diversified product does allow us to sell the product slightly faster because you've got 2 different price points. So it increases our absorption rate. And so it's kind of a symbiotic type thing that goes all the way around. But as a
So there's a guarantee on the open space if we approve this, right? I'm saying, you're saying you're gonna have how many acres of open
24.
space?
Right now, the way we've got it, the latest rendition is approximately 24 acres of open space. If we can,
I know you can't give us a definite, this is the exact.
I would
amount.
like to keep us somewhere between 25 and 35% open space. Now, where we end up in that regard is completely up to this board. But my goal here is somewhat selfish and maybe egotistical. I don't want to build another regular septic community or large lot community with no amenities. Frankly, Johnson County and frankly, Wilson's Mills has plenty of those already. We're trying to build something, create something that is something we can put a feather in our hat and be proud of. And like Mr. Wenzel said earlier, our office is right down Swift Creek Road. We're gonna have to drive past this thing all the time, and I want to be happy with the overall product. At the end of the day, we can go back to septic if you like, but that doesn't conform with your UDO code. With septic, we can't afford to do curb, we can't afford to do sidewalks, we certainly can't afford a single amenity, and we certainly can't afford to do sewer. So at this point, if this body decides not to vote in our favor, we'll have to go back to septic because sewer is not possible.
Have you already been to the state with your traffic?
No, sir. No, we've not gotten anywhere near that point yet. We're still trying to get to this
How much?
point. We have to do
3,500
traffic-
daily trips on
Sorry?
Cole, 3,500 trips on Cole Road and Benny Road.
Yeah, that data is always a few years behind, but yes, sir, that's correct.
A few years behind, so it could be more.
I would absolutely say it's more, yes, sir. But that's something we're prepared for, turn lanes, whatever we need to do. One of the things that we're attempting to do, once again, it's, a lot of this is up in the air, but we're attempting to ensure there's no cul-de-sacs, or very few, prefer not any, no cul-de-sacs. So from a safety standpoint, it's easier to navigate through. All the roads will be continuous. And attempting to, we know that we're gonna have to have at least 4 entrances, because this is split basically like a 50-yard line in a football field, half and half. We'll have to have at least 2 on each side. So the turn lane is something that we expect. Now, if we go back and if we stand back and punt and go back to septic, odds are we will not have to put a turn lane there at all, and there will be no improvements made to the road. But we're prepared for that.
And I guess I just wanted to say too, this is a conditional use district, so like, for example, Ms. Triplett, like, you're saying how much is open space? You can put whatever conditions.
I understand it. I was
Yeah,
just-
well, I'm saying you can right now, if you wanted to approve it, put the condition, well, I want at least 35% open space. You know, this is up to the board to place conditions on it now if you so choose.
But I will say, without knowing enough at this point, it's hard to make a guarantee like that. It could be 33. You know, I know it won't be more than 35. It's just not possible. It could be 29.72. I don't know, but it could be somewhere in that window. I can't say that.
If you put no cul-de-sacs in it, how are you gonna turn a fire truck around if you go down there?
Well, the goal is to never have to turn around. It's all continuous.
You all
road.
gonna have straight stops.
Yes, sir, correct. Only stop signs, no turnarounds or anything. That's the goal. Keeping everything continuous. From a safety standpoint, that makes the most sense.
So the roads inside that development will all connect to each other.
Yeah,
That's what you're
that's the
telling
goal. Our
me.
last rendition of it, all the roads are continuous and connect to one another. There's
I
no
understand
cul-de-sac.
that. Yes, sir. I understand.
Frankly, cul-de-sacs are inefficient from a development standpoint.
Any other questions?
You look at me like I have something to say.
Well, you
I-
look like you did.
And I guess I do have something to say. It's, I don't have anything written down. I don't have any notes on this, but we're looking to go to an R10. Is that correct? From an R40 agricultural. Okay. And we're going to be, is part of our problem, and I'll say that collectively, is part of our problem as council, the inclusion of, townhouses in this. Do we have a problem with townhouses?
Now, I think it's 5,000 square foot houses.
Yeah, that's what I think.
12,000 square foot townhouse, if you put a duplex on the 12,000, that's 2 units.
Okay.
They just joined.
Well, let me just, I'm kind of going off the cuff on some of this. Obviously I was not born and raised in Wilson's Mills like all of you guys have.
No, I'm not.
You're close enough. Yeah, and I was an Army brat, so we moved all over the place, but the last 40 some years I was living up north, and I'm used to townhouses. I'm used to small lots. I don't have a problem with it. And I don't have a problem with it for the following reason, I guess, and I know all the eyes are on me, and I'm trying to think of the right thing to say and put it in the right context. I don't have a problem with it because I'm used to it. And when my wife and I were starting out our family 49 years ago, our first home was a townhouse. We didn't worry about the size of the lot. If it had been affordable, I'd love to have had a single family home on a lot, and I didn't care if it was, I wouldn't have cared if it was 5,000 or anything else. Let me just try and put it in different terms. When you all and me too, we're buying our first car or getting our first vehicle or truck, whatever you want to call it. We didn't have a lot of money, probably. None of us were born into money, and we got what we could afford. And hopefully it was not going to be killing us on maintenance. And later on down the line, we got rid of it because we had built equity into that and we had hopefully kept it up so that it was saleable at the end. We could take that money and put it into something else a little bit nicer. And I think that's what I'm looking at here. I'm going to vote for this. And I'm telling you right up front, I'll vote for it. Because when my wife and I were starting out and starting our family all those years ago, we needed something like this. And I'll tell you what it gave us. It gave us a chance. It gave us a chance to get something that we could afford, where it would be in a nice neighborhood, a quiet, relatively quiet neighborhood, but a neighborhood with other children, a neighborhood where I have no problem with leaving my wife at home and going off to work, and I knew that every monthly payment that we made was affordable, and we were building equity in our home, and from that point on, we were gravy from that point on, because we finally got, after 7 years there, enough equity where we could actually buy a home with some property. So it gave us a chance, and that's what I'm looking for here. These folks that are going to be buying these things, whether or not they're 5,000-foot lots or not, it's going to give them a chance. It's going to give them a chance to live hopefully near where they work and where their children go to schools. And it's affordable. Like I said, it's the only way I can do it. It gives them a chance, and I'd like to see everybody get a chance towards home ownership, and I think this does that. When we sat down last weekend, we spent all Saturday with our planning retreat. One of the things that we came up with was the fact that we want homes like this that are going to be accessible to downtown for those people that maybe don't have cars, or maybe they only have one because their husband's taking it to work or whatever. So this falls within that, and I like it. I like the whole thing. I don't think there's anything I don't like about it. And I'll just say it one more time. It gives young home buyers a chance. It gives older people, once they sell their homes and they don't want to have to go out and mow grass and do all of that, it gives them a chance to enjoy life also. That's all I've got to say. If I'd written it down, it would have sounded a whole lot better.
Do you want to put the 30% open space with it? And when you start talking about open space, you're going to talk about drain ponds.
Yep.
That's one of your things.
You know it is. You know it is. What were
You
you
gotta
planning?
fence them.
Well, I'll ask the question. I'm known for asking that
Carry
question,
on.
right? Will you, Mr. Gray Wolf? Will you promise me right here in our open meeting that if we approve this, actually, whether or not we approve it, that your development, your community will have in their retention ponds or detention ponds, that they will be fenced in with a 4-foot high, hopefully black chain link fence with a gate, with a lock, and the police department and fire department have the gate to it. Will you surround that open body of water with a fence for me?
With the caveat that it doesn't have to be chain link. We prefer to do aluminum or something.
Something that will not prevent
Yes.
children from going in there, but will at least give them some thought.
Some deterrent.
Thank you. I was looking for the word, but I'm all out of words tonight. Thanks, Johnny. Never. Okay. Yes, it will serve as a deterrent. It will.
My thoughts on the property is that this is the type of property that the generation behind us are looking for. No maintenance, basically. They go to work, get off 8 hours, go home, or go to the club, have a couple of drinks, swing around the golf, play a couple of games of tennis, racquetball, whatever, and then go home tired, sit down, rest. They don't come home looking to mow grass, cut bushes, and maintenance on the outside, because that's work. But the other stuff is pleasure to them. And that's what I've been told is what they're looking for. And the ones you look at around you on the small lots and so forth, they're selling as fast as they can. And they're not sitting around waiting. You look at Gordon's farms up yonder. They're only about 15 feet apart. And they moving just as fast as they build.
And they're not gonna, that development's not gonna have anything for the people to have anything, nothing. They just drive there and they live there. There's no amenities for them. That's the one thing that I do like about what you said. The other thing I like about what you said is that you're gonna try to make it affordable. for the people that, in the town of Wilson Mills to have a chance to be able to own one of these townhomes. It's not gonna be a townhome that's $500,000. You know, I want it to be something that the citizens of Wilson Mills has an opportunity to have a chance to own. You know, and we know the median income of some of the people in Wilson Mills, so, you know, I understand that, so. I would myself would like to see it. My number would be 25%. I guarantee a 25 open space. Now, that gives you an opportunity. I hope you would work for more than 25%.
Yes, sir.
But I would like that we put the restriction of at least 25% open space. That gives you a little leeway when you're developing. And I agree with Mr. McGowan. I'm all for making sure that we put some kind of deterrent for the kids that they cannot, you know, that we can deter them a little bit about those ponds, because that's got to be done. But that's the two things that I feel the most about. We're going to have amenities for them. They're going to have things they can do when they get home. When kids get home from school, they're going to have some things they can do. You know, they're going to have some areas that they can go out and play in. You look at that Gordon Farm, when they get home up there, they're not going to have anything to go out and play in. And you've given me a guarantee of a 25% amenities, things that these kids and the parents can.
Open space plus
Yeah.
amenities.
Open space plus, you know, that, hey, we got something that these kids can do rather than getting out and doing things that they don't need to be doing.
Well, he came to us in August of 18 last year, and he said that the tax structure or the tax that the town would get from this project that he wants to build would be somewhere around $276,000. They're not gonna be cheap houses.
I didn't hear that last one. They're not gonna do what?
They're not gonna be cheap houses. $276,000 tax base, because I specifically asked him, why would you want to put this property in the city limits and give your homeowner a 42-cent tax? It's 78 cents for county, 42 cents for Wilson's Mills, 6 cents for the fire department. Now, why would you want to do that?
Well, I guess in conjunction with what you're saying, why would anybody want to move into the community with an HOA where they're also not only going to have to pay that, but also pay for an HOA? It's value proposition. Is there enough value?
Well, most people know that when they move into a housing development, it's going to be a HOA. I
Well,
mean,
nowadays with the mail kiosk being a requirement by the United States Postal Service, every community has an HOA.
you're going to put up clustered boxes or mailboxes,
We don't
right?
have a choice.
Yeah,
that's mandatory.
We have to nowadays.
You won't, it
Makes
won't
sense.
be house, it won't
When
be
you
on
have
a
a
house.
pool, clubhouse, fitness center, and things like that, you're gonna have an HOA that's more than just what you mentioned over at Gordon Park. They have the cluster mailboxes, maybe a little common area at the front, probably plant some flowers in the spring and they call it a day. This is gonna be more substantial, goes back to value proposition. I'm in the Cleveland school area, that's where I reside. We pay to use a pool at another community because there's not a Parks and Rec department over there. There's no parks, there's no anything. If you follow any of the county politics, that's been a big issue lately. And so we have to travel. I'm paying to access that pool, and I'm driving my daughter to it, several times a week. Value proposition for me to have a pool in the community would be substantial, and I'd pay a good price for it. So it's all about, once again, value proposition. Our goal with these townhouse lots is to be at a price of about $35,000 to $40,000 a lot. So I don't know what your definition of in inexpensive houses or affordable houses, but right now, based off of Johnson County as a whole, that is a very inexpensive lot price.
That's a
No matter
lot
where
price,
you're
that's
at.
not a house price though. You can put a $500,000 house on a $35,000 lot.
I can't put a $500,000 townhouse on that lot and ever sell it in this area. No offense to this area at all, but supply and demand and what people are willing to pay for it. People aren't going to pay that. You can do that in the Beltline in Raleigh. We anticipate that the price of these houses is going to be anywhere from about $150,000 to $225,000 when we're talking about townhouse lots. To me, that's affordable in Johnson County.
Yeah, I think we need to leave the sale of the properties
Yeah, that's up to
to
you.
this.
Yeah,
folks.
that's completely up to you.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
So that's okay. We're just kind of getting back. Did I get my promise yet?
yeah.
I didn't
He
get
said
my
a
promise.
nicer fence than a chain link.
No, but he didn't agree to it yet.
As long as we can do something a little nicer than chain link, yes, sir.
Anything that's gonna deter the
Yes, sir,
children, that's fine.
absolutely.
There we go.
There you
I'm
go.
good.
And
Here
I
was,
can
here
commit
was
to
still my
25%
question.
of
You,
it.
you've explained the amenities, you've explained the open area, which is all great, and I think it'll sell really, really well. And you, on your, request for the council, it says townhouse minimum lot size, 12,000 square feet,
Which is approximately, correct me if I'm wrong, 24 foot wide by 80 foot deep.
regardless of that. That's well and good and fine with me, and I think the townhouses will do well. And it was just a typo error, like I pointed out initially, in your second
Right.
written up application, it should have been 12,000, not 1,200.
1,200.
Here's the problem that I still have a problem with, but if this board doesn't, fine. Single housing minimum lot size, 5,000 square feet. That's 8 houses to the acre.
7, probably 7, somewhere around that by the time you get roads, street lights, curb and gutter.
5 times 8 is 40, and the acre lot is 43,560.
But if he can sell them, what's the problem?
The problem is we're zoning it R10, not R5.
R10 with conditions though.
Yeah.
You've already got R10 developed.
Right.
Already up there. You got 3 properties. The one closest to the 70-70 split, you got the Zantoon already R10. And then you've got the Bobby Murray track already R10. Then whenever they come in for a special use permit,
As long as they don't let it go past the year.
as long as they don't let it go past a year.
The other thing we gotta remember that they're not putting them on fire department road. They're
Right.
putting them out there in the commercial, proposed commercial zone. There's other things that are gonna be similar. I don't have any problem with it whatsoever. And more power to you if you can sell them.
I don't like down
But-
to 5,000 square foot lots. Okay. But I'm not gonna live on
You're not- that's
5,000.
what
I'm
I'm
not gonna
saying.
live out there.
That's what I'm saying. You're not buying it. And
I'm
I
not
hate to
buying
use, I hate to use the phrase out of sight, out of mind.
But
But essentially, that's what it is. It's not here on fire department. Again, it's something that we're not used to.
Right.
We're not used to this.
But that's
But
this
but it's
generation.
what's gonna happen, exactly.
This generation,
So I
I got
have-
an
I have no
18-year-old at
problem.
home. He
Yeah.
hates cutting grass.
Yeah, we
And-
can't all
and-
have 5 or
and
10,
just
15
like Philip
acres.
said, nobody wants to come home no more and deal with an acre yard. I love it. I love cutting my grass. It gives me peace by myself, but not everybody's in that anymore. This new generation
All
coming
right,
up.
any other discussion?
I just wanted to, Mr. Anderson, if you don't mind, I mean, I've handed out the sheets and I know you guys aren't real familiar with the consistency statements that are required with zoning amendments. But we went over it briefly last time, but essentially the motion has to be made accepting one of these statements. So a lot of it, you got, when you're considering it, it has to be, you know, you're considering the consistency with the comprehensive plan. That's really what the rezoning is doing. So you're gonna, you know, the motion is gonna have a statement that either you agree that it is consistent with the adopted plan and you know, you're accepting it, you're rejecting it because it's inconsistent, or you're still approving it, but think it's inconsistent with the comprehensive plan and stating why it's in public interest. And so those are the things that must be considered too when making the motion.
So if somebody was gonna make a motion, for example, to approve, you would refer them to section 1 there. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything to
You
deny?
could, it could be 1 or 3,
1 or 3.
because you can say, I approve it and it's consistent with our comprehensive plan, or you can say, I approve it and think it's inconsistent. It's not up for judicial review, but the state's trying to strengthen the connection between the comprehensive plans and zoning amendments. But it's not wrong either way. It doesn't matter if it's consistent or inconsistent, but
Well, is it, I mean, you know the comprehensive plan better than anybody up here at this table. Is it consistent with the comprehensive plan?
well, the last page of the staff report outlines the policies that are consistent and inconsistent. So there were 5 policies that it is inconsistent with, and there was 2 policies that they were consistent with.
Direct us to that top page, if you would.
It's page 7 of on the request for council action, the staff report, the last page.
Okay, you're saying it's consistent with the consistency with other plans here. What is it consistent with?
This is from the 2030 community plan, so it's consistent, the last two, with, from chapter 7, town form, the neighborhoods. Says new neighborhoods should be designed to encourage neighborly interaction. Second policy, new neighborhoods should include usable open space that serves resident needs and supports neighborly interaction. Obviously, how they're proposing it, that would be consistent.
So if,
The inconsistent policies under the same chapter 7 town form, neighborhoods, it states the town will promote the development of residential areas that are convenient to community facilities and commercial areas and are accessible via pedestrian and bicycle connections. The town will encourage new developments to develop in a manner that has no adverse impact on the environment. Obviously, there's some impacts, especially since a large portion is farmland, prime farmland. And then chapter 7 town form, community form, the town will establish a land use pattern that allows for efficient provisions of services, minimizes traffic congestion, sprawl, eliminates nuisances, and supports public safety. Obviously, it's putting a strain on police and fire response, along with and encouraging sprawl in a way. The town will establish a compact land use pattern that minimizes disjointed or leapfrog development. And the town will establish clear edges between town and country so that the visitors and residents have a sense of arrival upon entering Wilson's Mills. So those are the ones that I felt, were inconsistent just because of the location. It's not near the core.
But they're gonna be
of town.
inconsistent more because of the location other than anything else.
Correct,
Because, if we ever extend out that way, then they wouldn't be inconsistent.
correct.
So let's start from the beginning. If there's a motion to approve, which one of the sections here would you say should be incorporated in that motion?
It would be either one, stating you approve it and you think it is consistent. Or it would be 3, that, I think, hold on, rejecting, no, you're approving it. And then, so if you are, you're gonna says,
Encourage neighborly intervention.
basically it amends the comp plan too, but then you would say, yeah, why is the action still reasonable in public interest? So you would offset, even though it's inconsistent, why you feel it's reasonable and in the public interest.
So you would pick 3A, and then B would include the change in condition to the up to 20, no less than 25% open space, right? That's
Mhm.
again a 3B, and why the action's reasonable in the public interest is just reasons that the person making a motion should incorporate in the motion. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
There's no other conversation in regard to that. Do I hear a motion now? I would assume that we can combine B, C, D, and E all in one motion. All 4 pieces of property instead of having 4 individual ones.
Yes, sir. From our standpoint, yes.
Mr. Anderson, I think that they can. The reason that they have the 4 different ordinances is because they are 4 separate parcels of land for rezone, but they can combine those into one motion, correct?
One motion would include all 4 ordinances.
That's my question.
She says she can. That's
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna combine them anyhow to make one development.
Certainly.
I'd make the motion if I knew exactly what to say.
Me too. I make a motion that we rezone to R10 with the agreement that There will be a minimum of a 25% open space. What else do I need to say?
State some reasons, depends on the pond, and state some reasons why it's in the public interest to do the rezoning.
It should, because of, it's going to produce a neighborhood that it provides that encourages interaction. It's a neighborhood that has space to enable the interaction. I went to that chapter 7 thing there.
Put the fence in too.
It did.
I did what? Yeah, then I did put that, we'll have, I don't want to say a fence, so that we will have
A barrier.
a barrier that is of superior quality surrounding any pond.
What about neighboring ponds?
No, just property on the property.
Only on that property.
Be there,
I
be
live right
they,
alongside
be-
them, I got 3 ponds in that property.
let me
Well, that
finish
would,
this
we
up.
wouldn't require you to have it.
Be they
Keep
retention.
kids out of my property?
Obviously, we don't know that.
All right, be they retention ponds or natural ponds. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Tripp with the conditions set forth. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Councilman McGowan. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it.
I think a few people asked questions. I'll stay the whole time if you have any questions. Thank you.
I like the charts.
Thank you.
Okay, just a couple of things. We're about to move into our first, open forum. But there's a couple of comments that I'd like to make to the group while everybody's here. Could I have your attention, please? In 2018, region that Johnston County is located in is comprised of 6 counties, which is Wake County and accordingly the Research Triangle. That region grew by 15.2% or $408 million in 2008. Of that, $303 million of that growth took place in Johnston County. So of the 15%, majority of it was in Johnston County. There's about to be $40 million spent in Johnston County on a new jail beyond the John Deere property out on the 70 business the other side of town. There are presently 200,000 people in Johnston County. There's about to be a 20-year plan for water and sewer for Johnston County at an estimated cost of $400 million. I thought there were some interesting statistics to give you some idea. The largest growth year of recent time was in 2016. The average house in Johnston County is $113,000 less than the rest of the region, meaning the rest of the region averaged $380,000 and ours averaged $265,000. The best resale market in the region is $265,000 to $285,000 for housing. The average lot price in Johnston County in the region is $43,000, or it was in 2016. In 2018, that number is now $51,000 per lot. In Johnston County in 2018, there were 2,166 building permits issued. And for those of you who don't know, there are 17 townships in Johnston County. 612 houses were built in Wilders. Of the total growth in the county, 3 of the townships consumed 66% of the market growth, and that was Cleveland, Clayton, and Wilders. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody. Thought they were just some interesting statistics that might be of importance to you.
And Mayor, I do have those slides if anyone's interested, I can forward them. The
All right.
presentations from that day.
Okay, at this time, at 10 minutes to 8, we'll go into our first open forum. If you're signed in to speak and would like to do so, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Lucy Stancliffe, and I'm the HOA president for Ives Landing. And the reason I'm here today is to ask again for the town's help in dealing with the drainage that comes under one of our main thoroughfares. There's a 30-foot pipe, these are going under the street, and the riprap and the way it was built, the water has to go uphill and then go into an 18-inch pipe. It's not doing it. It's going up, over and around. We have one house that is literally sinking into what used to be a pond, and that's going to become a legal issue with that homeowner. But we have severe water problems back there. The water comes from the top of the neighborhood and just flows to the very bottom of West Chase, which then goes into open space. Because of the construction, the water's not flowing naturally, and we don't have any drains. And the work that was done out there maybe 8 months ago, I'm not quite sure, has created lots of standing water with mold and algae and growths and smells that are coming out of it in front of homeowners' lands that they need to address that themselves with you. But the main problem we're having is when the water comes down from what would be Imperial onto West Chase, it just comes down and there's a curve, and we have two 30-inch pipes that go under the street, and they're going right into homeowners' lands. The pipes that they're connecting to are too far away for the water to get in, and they're going from 30 inches to 18 inches, and there's too much rock, and the rock was not put in properly, so it's uphill battle, and it's just not happening. We've got homeowners that have standing water in their yards all the time, no matter how long it takes. Water takes a long time to move. And I just think that the town needs to come back and have a look and see what we can do about getting this water to the wetland area so it can just go back there, because it's not getting back there. It's just sitting. And we can't do anything about it, unfortunately. We need your help to do this.
Did anyone talk to the builder before he left?
We've tried to speak to the builder many, many times. He won't talk to us anymore.
Y'all at HOA, you can sue him.
Well, we'd rather not have to do that, but
The
we're a
town,
small HOA.
the town don't have anything to do with your.
Well, the
with
town
your-
has something to do with those pipes. Those are town pipes. They're under the town's
We didn't put them in.
roads. So you don't maintain them? So if that pipe cracks and
It's
falls
up to the homeowner to take care of it.
under
I'm
the
sorry,
street?
you're talking about under the
Not
street?
under the
Under the
street.
street. No, I'm talking under the street. This water has to cross under the street.
Who went out there with you?
Well, we've had the engineer come out several times, the engineer that the
That
town
was Lynn.
hired.
I think it might be best if you just give me a call tomorrow and
Okay.
let's talk about what we can do, because
Okay.
I don't know that it would be anything that the council could decide on tonight.
Okay.
It needs to be looked at again by our engineer to make sure that it is something that the problem is the town's pipe under the road.
Mm-hmm.
Just, because I know that a lot of the issues have been coming from people's driveways.
Yeah,
And
no, this
unfortunately,
is not
that's
what
where
I'm
the
here about.
towns-
I'm just here
yeah.
about the pipes under
Yeah.
the streets that you guys.
And
So
in
could you guys
anybody's
come out here
yard,
and see me tomorrow?
Sure.
if it's their yard, they have to fill it in.
Right, and I'm not here about yards. That's not my issue. My
But
issue is
where's,
just,
where's the pipe at?
it's on West Chase. There's two of them. As the West Chase makes the curve, there's two 30-inch pipes. And the riprap in the area that it's going into flows properly. But because of all the riprap and all the dirt that was left behind in construction, and the distance between the end of the 30-inch pipe and the beginning of the 18-inch pipe is so great that water's just not going into the pipe. There's more going up and around and underneath than what's actually going into the pipe.
You said one house was built on a pond.
We have 3 houses that were built on ponds up there.
There's never been a pond on that farm.
We have the
Yeah,
pictures
there
to
were
show
two.
there were 3 sediment
Not on Johnny
ponds.
Sutherland's farm. Might have been a
No,
wet
no, no,
hole
no,
or
no,
something
we're
like
talking
that, but
No, it's
Ives
down-
Landing
It's down the bottom of West Chase where it goes down and circles around and comes back up.
down at the
The low.
pump
the
station.
lowest spot. No, no, well, up towards my house from the pump station, but that's, would be the lowest part of West Chase. Whoever, when they did all of that stuff, the developer, the builder, whoever put the riprap down, all the rocks, for some reason thought that the way they're gonna fix all of this at the complaints of the folks in West Chase or Ives Landing, just dump tons of rock. That's all they did. And all it does is collect everything. And besides, it needs to go up here and it comes down here. So they think that with enough rock, it's gonna pick it up and drain. No.
Rocks don't do it.
Well, we should
Dirt
have told, we
does
should
it,
have
but
told that
rocks
builder
don't.
that years ago.
Rocks don't do it.
But that's what we're dealing with there. So I tried not to get involved in it because I live there, but that's what essentially it is.
We've
So,
discussed this a couple of times before, and I know there's been some engineering work, and Leanna is familiar with all that. If you will contact her tomorrow, I think she can move you in the right direction.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I don't have anything to do with it, but I'll go look at the pipe.
How
Let me
many
know when
out
you're
there?
coming out and I'll meet you.
Mr. Mayor, I have not signed in, may I?
You may.
My name is Lacey Barnes, and I obviously did not understand exactly how the previous discussion was going to go, and this is an open forum, so I'd like to just make a comment. I live on Cole Road. My husband Larry and I do. And we understand that development is coming in our county. We've participated in that ourselves. But the lady's comments underscore a concern that I have in that Cole Road is kind of a long way from Wilson's Mills. And these 3 R10s that have now been annexed and rezoned create, whenever something happens on them, nothing's happened on them just yet, create potentially a very intense need for infrastructure. Infrastructure in terms of drainage, infrastructure. I mean, I walk on Cole Road every morning and it's alligatored and we've got potholes and it's just us few chickens that live out there right now. I can only imagine what it's going to be like with 350 households on Cole Road, plus the hundreds that will be in those other 2. And we're not annexed into Wilson's Mills at our home. We're on 2 acres and it's just, we're county. So I worry a little and I'm counting on you all to ensure that not only do you get good, affordable homes for people in our county to live, we're for that too, but that the infrastructure necessary to ensure the quality of life for all people who live in that area are taken into account. It's not a freebie. Yes, there's tax revenues, but there's huge responsibilities from law enforcement, highway infrastructure, trash collection, all those kinds of things that make sure that our part of the county is always a good place to be. And so that's my comment, that you've approved it now. So we got another R10 coming our way. So we just look to you and we'll be looking for that accountability that goes along with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not at this time, we will close the open forum at 3 minutes to 8 o'clock. At this time, we will, Leanna, if you will introduce the folks from In Focus to explain to us about their presentation for the comprehensive plan and the UDO completion.
Hello,
Mayor.
Since you're all familiar with Lehman, Lehman, if you wanted to introduce your colleagues.
I can do that. This is Tim Gauss, who is a planner with In Focus. This is Richard Flo, who owns In Focus, but let somebody else manage it all, so don't ask him anything about money. He doesn't have anything to do with it. It's a pleasure to see all of y'all again. I hope y'all are halfway down that list that you worked on a couple of weeks ago, and already making good progress. So,
Thank you, Lima. Yeah, I started the company to do what I'm standing here before you to talk about doing, which is to help local governments do the very best job that they can do with limited resources. I started that a long time ago, 1986, and I'm gonna be frank with you, I got too big for my britches. And in 2001, I sold my firm. Because I didn't like airplane tickets and trying to be all things in a lot of different states. So I learned a valuable lesson. And when I started In Focus in 2002, I said to myself, you know, you never really know how to start a business till you sold one. So I learned from every one of those mistakes. And within Focus, I've been able to do things that I wish I had done the first time, or stick to things that I set out to do the first time. And one of them was to serve smaller communities. It's no fun working for the Charlottes, and I'll tell you right now. He mentioned Patty Rader. If they called and Patty answered, Tim, you might be working over there. But if I'm around, I'm running, because I'm not going to do it. I just won't do it. I cut my teeth in smaller communities, and I want to stay in smaller communities. One of the second things that I did was I said, you know what, we're not going to cross the state line. We're not going to cross the state line, and the council can probably appreciate this as much or more than anybody in the room, because it's very difficult to really understand a system in more than one state. And when I say a system, it's not just the planning and zoning things that you've asked us to speak to tonight, but it's how that dovetails into everything from your public works, the funding for utilities, your Powell bill system for maintaining streets once they go. Because think about it this way. On the subdivision that you talked about tonight, the development you talked about tonight, what's the final step in that development? The final step is you're going to be voting on a resolution to accept public infrastructure into your street maintenance system. So all these things weave together. And by limiting myself in 2002 and saying our firm is going to stay local, we're going to stay focused in North Carolina, we're going to concentrate on the smaller jurisdictions, we're going to get back to what was most important to me from the very beginning. And that's what we do. We could probably make a lot more money flying around the country for big cities. But if I'm not happy doing it, guess what? We're not going to do it. So I've told you a little bit about my background and who I am. I started out in engineering. I grew up in Seward. And I discovered planning and left the engineering firm and went and got a degree in planning and started down that road. So I work with engineers all the time. We've got to have them. What I didn't like about the engineering side is I really didn't care about the trim on the impeller and the pump and the bottom of the wet well at the pump station. I care about whether we do the pump station, and if we do it, where do we do it? If we don't do it, what's our other solution? Is it gravity? Is it this? Is it that? And that's what got me interested in this whole decision-making process. And planning is nothing but informed decision-making on your part, number one, on your part as leadership. Number two, on the parts of homeowners, property owners, that's number three, 2 and 3, because a lot of homeowners are citizens. Also on the part of businesses, to be able to make informed decisions. And last but not least, it's those that are looking to invest in your community, like some of the folks that we heard from tonight. So that's what planning is really about. It's really about enabling that whole group or network of folks that make up a community to be able to make good, informed decisions. I've listened tonight, and I'm very glad that I had an opportunity to come when you had some agenda items. So I was able to listen to how you process these and how how you asked your questions and where you focused your attention. And that was a good presentation by the developers and their team and everything else as far as answering questions. I heard stuff in there that taught me a lot about the consistency that I see in the development community. I didn't hear any surprises in your behavior tonight. I thought many of the questions and comments were good. There were some weaknesses, and I'm just going to be frank. You're not paying me to stand here, so I have no reason to say anything but the truth. Okay? I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I saw. Number one, the conversations about things like R10, that R10 should set a density. Your policy needs to set a density. And then when you have a way to trade density for quality, a mechanism in your ordinance that allows you to do that very clearly and very definitively, it's actually easier than what you went through tonight. That's a tool in your toolbox. You know, I don't recommend having an underlying zoning district in your neighborhood districts any denser than about 2.8, 2.75, somewhere in there, units per acre net density. That's taking out of the factor open space as well as street right of ways. Okay, so you take those out. So then a developer can look at that tract of land and calculate what their end result density is going to be. Is it, what am I going to get out of this 100 acres? Am I going to get 281 units? Am I going to get 300 units? Or am I going to get 250 units? What is it going to be? And if they want to go further than that, then they go through a process to go further than that that is very definitive. One of the things that I heard tonight was that there was no plan presented as part of that. To me, that's an essential component of approving a project like that. You know, when you're trading densities, you're talking about adding townhomes and things like that. I'm not saying that was a bad project. I'm just saying that would have answered a lot of your questions at the beginning in your agenda package. This is what it's going to take. The development community generally will provide that. It generally will. So it was a good educational process for me to be able to observe you and to comment back to you that I see some strengths. I think you're on the right subject matters. I think you're worried about the right things and you're looking at the right concerns, especially on stormwater and how those detention basins are secured. As on public infrastructure, right of ways, curb and gutter, sidewalks, connectivity, consistency with your plan, all those things, you hit the right marks. I commend your council for keeping you straight on your reasonableness statements and your consistency statements too. Those are very important and critical components. I am going to suggest make sure that you always state why, whether you're stating a reasonableness or consistency. Always add a little why to it. Make sure you got that why in there. Because there's a Supreme Court case involving the city of Kannapolis, which is where our office actually is, where they clarified that you can't just say it's consistent. You got to explain why it's consistent or why it's reasonable. So you're on the right track here, I think. I think you're on the right track. I think your tools in the toolbox apparently leave you under-equipped and at a disadvantage when your ordinance is not spelling out some things that it needs to spell out. And it's not about making it complicated. Lord knows I'm not smart enough to do this the hard way. So I look for common sense solutions. So I'm kind of talking about the ordinance end of things first before we back up to the plan. So there's a couple very simple perspectives about that. Examples on common sense is using those calculations so that when that developer looks things up, they've got the answers and they're pretty clear. Okay, but you've got the tools in your toolbox. So when they finish with Valerie, it should be pretty straightforward for you. You're able to make a legislative decision. Do we rezone? Do we not rezone? Do we have the infrastructure? Or are they going to provide the infrastructure? Is it going to address all the issues we're concerned with? If it is, it's a straightforward, reasonable, then you got an easy vote. And that enables you to go ahead and sort of make the decision about that area without having to get too far into the weeds yourselves. Okay? Because sometimes I see boards get into the weeds about certain topics and they miss other topics because they're trying to make a decision in a period of an hour or two. And so you want to make sure your ordinance backs you up on that. That's the tool in your toolbox for you to use to be able to meet whatever it is you want to be as a community, however you want that community to be. So I'm going to move over to the plan side now. But I want to explain what a plan really is and how to use a plan. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what we want to suggest to you. You all are familiar with building codes. They have nothing to do with zoning, right? Building codes talk about the width of this door opening, the wiring in here, and these emergency lights, and the foundation of the building, and the plumbing, and the mechanical, and things like that, right? If you went home to your spouse and you walked in the door and your spouse handed you a set of the building code and said, honey, I'm ready to build our dream home, and I went down and got a copy of the building code, let's get a contractor in here and give him these building codes and tell him to build our dream home. What's that builder gonna ask you for? And I said, well, what's the house plan? What's this place look like? And the money. Mayor's on top of the money side. But they're gonna wanna know what's it look like, right? Well, let's set the building code aside for a second, and let me say this about your zoning code, your development ordinance. Your development ordinance is about those specifications and standards for building a town. It's about the density, the lot size, streets, stormwater, other open space, all these different issues. What goes on in those areas, how it looks, how it feels, what kind of amenities work for the neighbors, because keep in mind, the folks that live in those homes are who you're really building a town for, right? The reason I bring that up is that if you're building your dream town, you have to have a set of dream town plans. What is it we want to look like and be? Okay? And how do we get there? Private money, for the large extent of it, private money is going to come to the table with that zoning ordinance to build your dream town. So it's that hand in glove. It's just like your dream home. House plans and building code, build your dream home. A good town plan and good development codes fit together will build your dream town. And that's how the towns that you are probably familiar with all over your region, ones you like, ones you don't like, that's where it comes from. So I want to say this, back to the development ordinance side for just a moment. Those ordinances, about how long is your current ordinance you're working out of now? Couple of pages?
A couple more than that, maybe 300.
Okay. That's not an unusual size at all. But when we chop that ordinance up, it's not all creative stuff. A big chunk of that ordinance is going to be what I'm going to refer to as your statutory stuff. That's the things that you don't have a lot of wiggle room in. The state kind of sets in motion how your board of adjustments got to have quasi judicial, what's a 4/5 vote, what's a simple majority vote, all that stuff's already spelled out. So a piece of the ordinance, let's say about a third of it, is going to be relatively straightforward. Sure, you can set the size of your planning board, 7 members, 5 members, who reviews the site plan, staff, or the planning board and staff, or you and the planning board and staff. Those are little things that you can adjust. But about a third of your ordinance is largely derived from the enabling legislation. That's that legislation that delegates to you the authority to carry out land development and land use management. Another piece of the ordinance is mandatory stuff that flows down to you from the federal folks in Washington via Raleigh. They don't normally hand it to you. They normally hand it to the state, and the state says, we don't want it, and they throw the potato to you. Stormwater management in some jurisdictions that they have to do local versus non-local. Flood damage prevention ordinances, otherwise your flood plains and that sort of thing. And something that I heard some discussion about a little while ago when people were talking about stormwater runoff and causing some mud and some, construction site to create problems on other people's properties. That's usually handled through your soil sediment erosion control, which is usually at the county level or the state level, one of the two. But I generally recommend that you adopt a fairly thin version of that. So when you've got a neighbor who's got a problem, the answer is not, well, that's not us, you got to call the state. The answer can be, we'll get our code enforcement people to get on right away to get that fixed while the state people get out there with it and work out the details. So mandates and statutory stuff are a good chunk of those ordinances. The remaining 60% of that ordinance, the bulk of the ordinance, I call the character of the ordinance. That's what makes Wilson's Mills Wilson's Mills. That's what makes you not Archer Lodge or Clayton Smithfield or anybody else. It's what makes you, whatever it is you want your community to be. And we set the districts up to do that. And we set the tools in the toolbox, and we employ some common sense tools. One of the best ones that you can use is development agreements. Reduce your conditional use stuff and go to development agreements. Then you're not trying to do this in an hour. You get it on paper, you get it all drawn out. Developers like that idea because they understand agreements a whole lot better than they like zoning stuff. Is that a fair statement, anybody? I'm not kidding you. So tools in the toolbox that can help you achieve what it is you want to achieve without guessing at some things or without having to entrust. Because believe it or not, promises that are made in these rezonings, unless they are conditions that are agreed to, are non-binding. They're just not binding. So always be careful with that. So the right tools and the right toolbox. So what you have before you, after speaking with your staff, we were asked to put forward a proposal to do two things, either separately or in combination. The first thing that's in your proposal there is is to get your comp plan and your master plan stuff for your, what it is you want the place to be like, knocked out. Get that done, get that up to date, so you are getting ahead of the game rather than waiting until you've got a lot of applications flowing in the door and staff finding themselves either answering calls or handling walk-in stuff rather than getting ready for the future. So part of our role would be basically back up your staff with the extra horsepower in your department to get back ahead of the game, so then she can take it and run with that once it's done. The second part in there is to complete your UDO. You get that package put together and wrapped up, done, and in place. The third option in there is to go ahead and do them both, which does, the reason it saves so much money. Anybody remember me saying I'm not that smart to do it the hard way? If we're doing the plan and the ordinance together, then as we've got this idea, this vision, and we are working out the details in those ideas and visions, it's easier right then to kind of get those specs put together while it's clear and sorted out in our head. If we have to come back a year or two later and, okay, besides reading the plan, let me make sure I've got the real mechanics of that thing in my head when I'm trying to write local ordinance to carry it out. So that's why that's put in there. Patty can talk to y'all about any budget cycles or anything like that you want to. We normally don't have any problem with spreading things out over multiple budget cycles, but I don't want to spread the project out. Patty's going to kill me for that later. Yeah. She's the boss, and we respect that. But I know that small towns like to spread costs out over a couple of fiscal years sometimes, and I never have a problem with that. But I don't want to stress the project out because I can do a more thorough job, a better job in a shorter period of time if I can maintain my thought processes. I'm finishing Youngsville's now. They just adopted their plan, and their ordinance is largely written, but the planning board's still got about 2 months to go, so I'm feeding it to them just a few articles at a time. The reason being is I wrote the ordinance as I wrote the plan, so I could pull it all together very nicely. And we're going through that right now. That's where I'll be tomorrow night in Youngsville. We've served Archer Lodge since about 2013, I guess. We did the plans and ordinances over in Creedmoor, and just a number of they've got the false rules. Everybody's heard of those things in that area. So we work in a lot of communities that are on the outskirt edge of urban explosion, and the flyover communities, as they're known. The flyover communities are the ones the airplanes fly over to get to the big cities and the centers and all that sort of thing. And I cut out a piece from the Charlotte Observer this weekend that was talking about that's the places where people want to live now. I'm going to say a couple things because I know there's more stuff on your agenda tonight. I want to say a couple things so that I can kind of put some closure to my presentation. One of them is, of course, that the future is never late. 10 years, we'll be here in exactly 10 years. And so there's not much we can do about that other than be prepared. The second thing that I'd like to say about this process is that when you equip your staff with tools that they need to do their job, it's going to make your job easier if they're the right tools. They're sharpened the right way, they're tuned the right way, they're set the right way. Okay. And I gathered tonight that your current ordinance is not bringing you what you really need. So you're going by faith. You're flying by word of mouth, which I think is a great honor to be in that situation. But you want to make sure that if something happens to the people making the promises and the project ends up getting rolled to a new investor group, guess what? The entitlements live with the land. What you granted lives with the land. It's not to a person. It's not to a company. It rides with the property. If they flip the property, I'm not talking about this developer, but if any developer flips the property to someone else and they stood here and promised you all this stuff, if it's not in that nice and tightly, you're gonna get into the back and forth of that. And usually it's after you've seen the problem rather than knowing about it ahead of time. Because a lot of times it's very difficult. They call it constructive notice, when you don't know about it on paper, but you see it when it happens on the property. Working with your planning boards, that's who we feel is the right people to do the job. So we're going to be, as part of this process, we're going to be working with you to help you in developing a culture that is about what it is you want the town to be. So you lead with opportunity and vision, not regulation. That's why I don't call these ordinances regulations. They're really standards and specifications. When you make the decision to zone a piece of property a certain way and the standards and specifications are met, it should be a great project in the end. You get to make those decisions up here at this board. Okay, you pick out what you want it to be, and then let the ordinance do the magic. And that's the best way it can be. Then you can lighten some of your load. With the planning board, we want to see your planning boards get into the business of being the visionaries for the community, not a regulatory board. So you want to make it easier on them too. That also helps you get more interest. I'm going to tell you a little story about Creedmoor one time. We moved the planning function from a portable trailer unit behind town hall into a rented space downtown. And you know, Creedmoor is a much bigger city than you are. They're like 4,000 people.
I'm very familiar.
And the planning department's out on the corner on Main Street now. And we had to go and put some petitions in because we ended up becoming a very popular place. We had a lot of citizens that really got engaged. They attended meetings. They got behind the community. They came by and wanted to see what was going on because it added and fueled some excitement in the community. And I'm really proud of that every time I go by there and I see that display of great effort. Now, the petitions were just to keep the folks that dropped in from taking up too much of our time when we're trying to get work done, you know. But it's a great feeling when you take planning and the excitement of your growth opportunities, whatever that is that you want. Some people may want no change. Some people may want a lot of change. Most people want a mix of the two. Either one of those scenarios is when you need planning. If you don't care, you don't need this. But if you care and want to preserve certain things and you want to grow certain things, then that's when you have to put this program to work for you. I've said a lot. I'll take some questions from you. Anybody? Fire away.
I got two, and then that'll probably open the door. One is, where were you 3 or 4 years ago?
I was, let me see, 3 or 4 years ago, I was in this building and came over here at the request of your town administrator at the time to talk about doing what I just said.
Number two is, we kinda, I think, need to be told what we need to safeguard for in our rules and regulations, our UDO and our comprehensive study by the experiences that you've had since 1986 or whenever that was, because that's critically important. What scares me to death is we know our town's going to grow, but we have no way of really controlling what we're doing. You saw the predicament we were in tonight, and we want to be ahead of that curve. And it's not what's important to us as I see it. It's what's important to our children and our families' children 25, 30 years from now. What's this little town going to be? It's going to be a big town, but is it presenting itself the way that we're accustomed to? That's critically important to me, and I hope you bring that to the table.
I will be doing the work personally. I will be part of a team on the plan. As far as the ordinance is concerned, I will probably be writing that personally, simply because I'll be taking it to paper if Tim will let me. It's gonna be up to him. I saw him looking at me out of the corner of my eye, so I better watch out what I promised there. But I want to do it because this is the part I like doing. That's why Patty runs the business. I don't want anything to do with running the business. Forgive me, managers. We got a couple of them sitting here. I don't like that part. I like this part. Now, let me add something too, Mayor. I mentioned a little while ago, there's gonna be some training and things like that going on. That's the best way to do this, so that we understand the questions to ask, we understand the questions that really mean something. I heard some comments when I was out in the hall a little while ago about somebody talking about liking to mow grass versus not, and realizing that there are different generations and everything, and that's a reality when you as decision makers sit up there. I've got 5 sons. When my oldest one moved down to Greenville, South Carolina, because they all bounce right into the middle of town right now. And they will all bounce back out of the middle of the big towns, and they will bounce where? Not out to the cul-de-sac subdivisions. That's not what their values are. They'll want to still have that downtown feel, but they're going to move to the small town. So I believe that about 10 years from now, you're going to see a wave of those millennials who will be 45 years old then instead of 35 years old, starting to come back and look in communities that have that feel of what we all remember from the 60s or whatever it was, when you could walk down the street and get a popsicle at a country store, or a little store in a downtown area or something like that, or going to a Belk's in the middle of town, that kind of thing. And our goal is to try to set that in place, because those millennials are on a trajectory that we can't always control. They're on a trajectory. And so are the boomers. And guess where they're going to intersect? They're going to intersect on things like not wanting to mow grass. They're going to intersect on things like walking a block to have lunch, or to go to their friend's house on a sidewalk without walking down a ribbon paved street. Kids playing in the yards, eliminating some of the slab on grade types of issues that you see in high density. And that's part of the tools in the toolbox that makes sense. You want to do certain densities, you can do slab on grade. You get into other densities and slab on grade doesn't work because you got those V ditches in between them. So now you got kids trying to run around the yard and it's just V ditch after V ditch in between every house. So there's those common sense things that make up a neighborhood. Anybody here ever heard of Richard Pryor?
Yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm going to quote Richard Pryor. You probably thought the last thing I would
You're going out on
do
a limb here.
is come into town hall and quote Richard Pryor. Well, I'm going to tell you something. The guy was brilliant on something. He said one time, he said, "This is a neighborhood. This is not a residential district." Now think about that. We're not in the business of doing residential districts. Valerie did all that stuff. We want neighborhoods, places people are going to live. We're not building these communities for the sake of going through the motions of building communities. We're building these communities where they're places where the folks are going to grow up and grow old, and they need housing choices. I want my mom, when she can't keep up her own place, to not have to go to another town just because she wants to be able to live in a single story little flat and be able to go, and have everything taken care of. She doesn't have to worry about anything else other than cooking her breakfast or playing cards with some friends or something like that. And so you have to look at your mix of housing. Townhomes are part of it. Small infill apartments. So you want to watch out for your limitations on apartments. A 300 unit apartment complex isn't always a great thing on a small town. It might be a 72 unit facility that might be targeted towards folks that, I don't know, 150, 160 years old, want to settle down, you know, and take it easier. So you want to look at that. So those points that I heard, those were the right value statements that I heard you make. We will go through and we will pull more of those out of your community. You'll read in there about interviewing. We will interview your business community. Not with a Survey Monkey app or a website or an email or a thing in your power bill or anything like that. It'll be my eyes to their eyes, asking them 5 questions. Okay, not about their business, not that we don't want to know how many millions they make or anything like that. You might ask, why don't we start with the business community? The business community, every one of those entrepreneurs and proprietors has their own perspective, right? But guess what? I know a little something. After listening to years and years and years of their customers and the folks that they interact with every day, they've been tainted. They've also got a lot of perspective from those folks. So they usually, when they answer the questions, they're answering the questions in the context of their broader perspective. I did that in Youngsville. I interviewed everybody, every business in town. Everyone. And you know, what I was hearing about the parking and about this and that and the other, you ask the average person, they're not going to think about the same things those business people were saying. Then we go to the civic groups. We got a couple civic groups in town. We had the women's club. There was like 15 people came to that, met in a little church, and went through a similar exercise with them. So we met with the different groups, the businesses and so forth, and then also interviewed leadership and asked them the same question. So you know what we're doing with them. And it's eye-opening. It's an opening experience. I had a business owner one time in a little town in western North Carolina ask me, as I finished the questions, said, and this guy wouldn't play poker with me, boy, I'll tell you. I thought, here it comes. He's going to say something like, I can't believe we're paying you to do this. He said, after I finished my questions and answers with him, he said, can I just say one thing to you? Oh. He said, I just want to say thank you. I've been in business here for 17 years, and it's the first time anybody from town hall has ever come to my place of business, sat down with me, and asked me what I thought. So what it also did was, while I gained information to bring back to you to help you set your priorities and your goals, what's important to help achieve the vision that is being set here for the town, these are action things. These aren't pie in the sky. This is what to get done. It built goodwill. The local proprietors felt that their leadership cared about them and was going through this process. And we packed a house one night in town hall of supporters. Packed a house. Because one of the first things we found in that town, and I'm going to go ahead and shoot straight with you, and one of the first things we found out in that town was a lot of people were concerned about some of the fussing between council members. And I called the mayor and I said, Mayor, we got some low hanging fruit here. It's not going to cost a dime to fix. And Mayor called a special meeting and we presented all this information, and the mayor stood up and said, I just want to be the first to say, you know, I want to work better at respecting each other's differing opinions. And I promised to do that. And the other council members all stood up and did it. Every one of them got these rounds of applause, and it was fantastic. And it was like the best cheerleading thing that the town could have. But it was surfacing as the #1 fear among its residents. And that's why we went ahead and knocked it off the list right away, got it done. So I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I want to bring you the truth because we got to know that. You know, you do. You need to know what we find out there. And we're going to find ways to deal with it. That's part of the success of the plan. And the last page of the plan will be a blueprint for success. It's a punch list. It's a checklist. And it usually is broken into several categories. The first being getting our house in order. Because you never know what that might mean. It might mean part of getting our house in order might be completing the plan and getting the new ordinance in place. Or it might be, like I said a minute ago, you know, overcoming some of the infighting that was causing a lot of negative perceptions in the community that we were able to just kill in about 15 minutes. So that's our pitch. I'm gonna stop talking and ask if there are any other questions. I've got a couple of professionals here. Y'all have all met Lehman before. Traditionally, Lehman would be my boss in a city hall, city manager. You got one of those too? And I'll be a planner. I'll be Valerie. In your case, I would work under Valerie here, and Tim and I, we would work as a component of your planning department to get this knocked out. That's the way we take the approach. None of our stuff will have our name on it. In fact, we're gonna give you the only stuff that does, which is our propaganda material. But you'll notice in there all these plans and things from different places, Kings Mountains downtown, whatever it is. They don't have our logo on it. Any plans, any maps, anything that we do that is produced in this process is gonna have that seal right there on it. So it's a product of this town hall, okay?
You have any questions?
I have a question for Valerie. Do we not have, are you okay, Lynn?
I just want you to be able to see
I
it.
can see her, I'm fine.
Okay.
I don't want you to get hurt there.
I'm not.
Do we not have, our UDO being worked on by somebody?
The UDO has a lot of issues that needs to be worked on outside of what we can do right here.
Yes, Leanna, go
I
ahead.
think maybe what you might have been referring to was the Triangle J, is trying to assist us with that.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
And that's-
So the Triangle J themselves were unable to assist with anything like that. What they were gonna do was hopefully find a retired planner somewhere that could help us out. They were never able to do that.
So they
and-
weren't working on the rewrite.
No,
Okay,
and then the
that's
more
what I needed.
Valerie and I looked into this
Right.
video from the company is,
I
you
just
know,
didn't
there
want
are
to,
lots of issues that probably that wouldn't have even worked.
I just didn't want a duplication of effort.
And then, you know, this could be something that Richard speaks to as well, but the biggest problem with the UDO that we just tried to have this other company create was that they didn't pay attention to the comprehensive plan. And as Richard said, that's your dream. And you have one that was created in 2006 by, I think it was kind of a copy and paste from the Rural Development Center sort of thing, because you had to have one in place for some things that you wanted to do at the time. So, you know, it no longer fits. And if you don't have that in place first, the UDO is never gonna work. And this is what they're proposing to do.
Okay, right, I need to get that extra, thank you.
Yes, I was looking through the deliverables here. Is there a zoning map as part of the deliverables here?
Oh, yeah, it's part of the,
It's not spelled out. but
zoning,
We gotta have that.
It's not a separate item. Your official zoning map is the last page of Article 1 of your zoning ordinance.
Bingo, right.
Period. And it will have signature blocks on it for the mayor, for the clerk, and for the planning, zoning, and subdivision administrator. And that will be in every place you look. And then we're gonna suggest that you have your plan on the wall, what we call the storyboard. So when you're in a meeting, there's sort of the big picture and it zeroes down to your detail. And then we put the zoning map behind the door because it's not gonna be needed nearly as much as the plan is. Okay, or hanging the zoning map over here like this one is. But that's the way we recommend it, so that when you're in this room conducting business, there's your vision. And everything else that you do going forward is a component of that plan. Let's suppose you get down the road and you've got something that your engineers want to do on utilities or infrastructure or sewer or some other capital improvement piece or whatever. I recommend that they always be made, basically formatted to insert right into the plan as a component of the plan. So there's really only one plan. And it just matures with you over time. So every couple of years, we may spend 2 hours updating one or two things because something that was an idea turned into a reality. And that also lets your citizens see that their idea, their contribution, their comments in meetings like this were listened to. They did not go unheard, you know, because keep in mind, you got those 5 groups to focus on: leadership, which includes staff and everything, your citizens, your property owners, your business community, and certainly not, least of all, those that are willing to invest in your community. That, if you create a win-win, it's a good situation. If you've got winners and losers in your comprehensive or your town plan or your ordinances, doesn't work. Remember, your town is gonna be built on private investment. You wanna create the right opportunities for success that also meet your goals. So people want to do business here.
We're not looking to vote on this tonight, are
Yes,
we? We are.
I would prefer it, but if you'd rather table it, we can. This is just something that needs to get
I,
started as
I
soon as
I don't know
possible.
about the rest of you, but I'm looking at it as a fairly strong chunk of change.
Well, I'm looking at it a little different. It's a lot of money, I agree. But in a different pay scheme, because he spelled it out for me a while ago.
And that Patty has already offered that as well, so. Let's take Richard off the hook, yes. Patty
Please
has
call me
already
Rick.
offered
I'm Richard in this professional circle, but I'm really Rick.
that. Rick,
Thank you.
Okay, but if we're gonna vote on it, should we not all become aware of what you're discussing, what you're talking about?
He said we could pay it
paid it in more than 1 year.
more than 1 year,
Two-
more
like
than
two
one,
fiscal years.
what did he call it?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year. Okay, I was considering paying the back half and then 3 equal payments. The back of it, 3 equal payments.
The back half. What do you
Yeah,
mean back?
$9,444. This fiscal year, 2019. Then we'll go into our budget session, and in 2019-20, we'll put a third of it into our budget. And then the next year, another third, and then the next year, another third.
Which option are you considering?
That might be toting a note a long time.
Yeah, I don't think.
Hey,
You wanna
what
carry that
option-
along?
What option are you looking at, A, B, or C?
See,
See, hey, we're one to consider.
you're talking about doing A,
They work hand in
and
hand, so
then
you
you
got
got
to
to
have
do
both of them.
B.
Yeah, I don't think that they're gonna stretch it out that.
You
and
don't
I
wanna
don't
stretch
think
it
that
out
we-
3.5 years?
I don't think that would be anything that you all wanna do anyway.
I will be killed dead tomorrow.
I'm pretty sure Patty didn't say that.
No.
And 2 years working on UDO, ain't you, John?
Yeah, what she might be able to
And 2
do,
years working on the UDO now.
That's right.
And it ain't complete.
That's right.
That's exactly.
Exactly right.
And we're saying,
And we spent a buck of money.
We
It's
don't know
6
how
or
much
8
money we
months.
spent.
have this thing completed.
9 months, 9 to 12.
yeah, it's about 9 to 12 for both projects.
Right.
What I would envision is that you've got something in this current fiscal year, if we get started going and what have you budget in this fiscal year that you're in right now. You may have something in contingency or something already budgeted, I don't know. Then the fiscal year that's coming up would be a significant part of it, and then carry some of it over into the other one, because that won't push us out so far. They're trying to get you over those humps a little bit, but I can't tote the note too long, because it's
You gotta
what I do
pay
for a
it.
living.
We're paying employees. Significant, it gets me to a bunch though, because it means a lot to different people.
It's an investment that you have to decide on.
That's right.
Is it an expense or an investment? An investment's gonna pay you a dividend, an expense doesn't.
Well, from what we've done in the past, it's been an expense, so we gotta do an investment.
That's,
I agree.
That,
It's been budgeted.
9 to 12 months, what kind of meeting that consisting of?
well, that's gonna be working some people to the bone. What I tend to do is, once we get rolling, we will be doing a lot of work in the town. You will see us on the ground, so to speak. So we gotta, we're the new guys in town. And I gotta be where you are pretty quick, as far as knowing and understanding as much as I can. So a lot of times you'll see me either on foot or on a bicycle when I'm doing my interviews. Anybody remember where they could jump the curb off the sidewalk on their bike when they were 10 years old?
You want to
You
see the
still good?
scars?
I gotta get there. I gotta learn your community. I don't ride around, and look at it out of the windshield. I get on the ground, boots on the ground, or my bike tires on the ground, and I get to know your community as quickly as I can. So during those first couple of months, your boards are gonna have a honeymoon. That's you and your planning board. They're gonna be on a little honeymoon. And then once we start down this road and we start preparing material and everything, we're gonna ask your planning board to have something on their agenda every month, the first couple of months on the plan. Then it's gonna go to asking them to have a second meeting each month for probably a couple of months. And that'll warm them up. Then by the time we get into the UDO, we're gonna be asking them to do their regular meeting every month and a second work session every month for probably about 5 more months. So your planning board's gonna probably get to 2 meetings a month for around 7 or 8 months. Now, this is doing it right. Because it's not what I want here. It's figuring out what it is you want here and making sure that everybody is brought along. I tend to encourage the electeds to attend the planning board meetings and be a citizen. You know, you can always notice that there may be a quorum there that's not going to take any action or something like that. But be there. That way you're hearing the nuts and bolts. You're going to get to witness the sausage being made. And that way you're not waiting until they produce it and then I got to start and I got to explain 12 months worth of work to you in one meeting night. So it's a lot of work. But y'all have everything in this, invested in this, not just your money, it's your future. And so I don't want to go out and just write it up and send it on over. It's going to be done here, hands-on. You know, I'll be writing stuff in my office, but I'll be gathering it here and presenting it here and working with your boards here.
It still is a chunk of change, but I see where everybody else is going with this. In a previous life, I used to sell airplanes, and the customers I did not like were the ones that came to me and just tried to knock me down on price. And I don't think we're going to do that. The ones that I did like, that I love doing business with, are the ones that would come in and ask for some sort of concession. They were easy to deal with. You want to throw in a free
Lehman?
A free Lehman, one in 2 years?
Oh, Lordy.
Another planning session, just like we had 2 weeks ago.
A retreat?
You don't have to answer that, but that would be nice. But anyway. You know, you don't ask, you don't get. Look at Leanna going, why did he ever get elected?
You still ask good questions, okay?
I'm still stuck on the 2 years. I thought y'all agreed to do this every year.
We haven't gotten there yet. Don't bank on it yet. Anyway, okay.
I know the boss lady. And I'm willing to,
It hurts.
yes, it does. I'm willing to lobby for you a little bit. Let me just say a little something about our business. We don't chase a lot of request for proposal stuff because that's a lot of speculative work. We do what we need to do to pass the savings to our localities. Valerie's probably seen other prices for UDO work and what have you too, and for a lot more money and a lot less presence and hands-on. So we're not giving you a big fluffy price, I can assure you. Giving you somebody like Lehman to do a retreat next year, I don't have a clue what that boiled down to in Patty's world, but I will encourage her to give that to you one more time without charge. Now Lehman's looking at me going, now wait a minute. I'm the one that rolled it out here.
Yeah.
Lehman will still get paid.
We'll figure it out. David only wants to be every 5 years anyway, so.
Why did I say all that stuff?
He made us work, let me tell you. We said things that we've never said before.
Well, then he auditioned for the firm because I
don't have any problem with it. I like everything I'm seeing. I like everything I'm hearing. Haven't been involved in the town council for about a year and a half. So when I look at that kind of change, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we were not looking at anything like that. It was simply out of our pocket. We couldn't do it.
And we've been wading in a mud hole ever since.
We codified them. We paid $12,000 to codify them, but it's the league. You see what you got? The league codified our ordinances. Yeah.
So I'm fine with it, really.
Don't put your UDO in the codification. Use a reference page and keep it outside. Because they will eat you alive with all the graphics and the color and all that kind of stuff. Plus, I've had them do what we used to call a survey and drop in a red, which means they read the level rod, and there was a red 7 right there above a 0.8, which should have meant 6.8, not 7.8. So they dropped the red. And what we've seen the muni codes do when they try to do the big ordinances is think about it. If you've got a couple of ordinances on, I don't know, leash laws, you can't have a dog on a leash longer than 25 feet or something like that. Those are usually formatted and they're pretty straightforward and there's not a lot of complexity. When you get into your zoning ordinance, you may be 6 or 7 little tiers of indents in on something, if one of those gets bumped wrong, it can change the entire interpretation and meaning and potential legal outcomes of somebody's property rights, and that's something I don't recommend doing. I would suggest keeping it outside the code of ordinances. Do I have to go back and ask her to give you leave?
No, sir, you don't. I'll cut you there. I will make a proposal. I make a motion that we secure the services of InFocus under option C as presented this evening.
No, second.
We've had a motion made by Councilman McGowan and a second by who?
Either one.
Councilman Eason, to accept the proposal by InFocus as presented by Rick.
Option C.
Option C.
And between Leanne and I, we'll work on Patty I'll be encouraging on some kind of payment schedule that'll help you with that. You know, they'll at least get you to get into that, not this fiscal year, not the full one that's coming, but at least get you to, you know, into that third one from where you stand today.
That would really help us.
Yeah.
But
We understand that. We understand that because, you know, even if you had billions in reserves, it still would require a budget amendment to transfer them, right?
Right.
we do understand that, but I think everybody here is scared to death that we have heard about or witnessed money being spent toward trying to get this accomplished, and it hasn't been done. And now we're at crunch time, and we need to make this happen, and it needs to be correct this time for years in the future.
While we may be speedy in our schedule, that's mostly so I don't lose track in my mind. We actually get paid for being accurate and right first. That's our first priority, is to be correct. Being
Okay.
fast is a bonus.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you, and I think this community will be better for it.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Members of the board, I appreciate your opportunities to serve. We look forward to it. Tim, are we gonna get started right away, right? It's nice to see all the folks
Thank
here.
you.
Y'all have a lot
Thank
of
you all for
public
coming out.
interest here. Y'all should be proud. You have a lot of people that take interest in what you do.
Well, you don't know, well, Lima does, but one of the things on our agenda from the planning retreat was a new town hall, and obviously, we didn't even have a big,
Little bigger room?
we need a much bigger room. Thank you.
Everybody's
Yes,
been
sir.
good.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem.
Sir.
Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you,
for
sir.
the confidence.
Good to see you again, Lynn.
See you next year. Look forward to working with you.
Yeah, we can, if y'all don't mind, we'll take a 5-minute break.
What'd I do?
Good.
Good to see you.
Man, I'm laughing.
I try to stand up here and stretch my whole body a little
Camera's
bit.
still rolling.
Camera's still rolling, folks.
Feel you did a good job. You get by there.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Good to see you.
Feel you did a good job. I'm all right. You doing all right?
Try my best to, yes, sir.
When you're at some kind of box, somebody. Maggie didn't get one, but Connor got one. Maggie's one that lives with me. Connor's the one that her daddy goes around and breaking. But what she didn't know was they give her each one of them boxes for one of his mates. So that, she said, how did Connor get one of them for Christmas? He said, I did. I just sent it off to see I say because his daddy went to over and give him to buy these all fixed.
Yeah, right. Big difference. Last three.
Yep, that's why he got it. Well, that's why he got stuff that he does.
Yep, that's right. Big difference.
Good, Harry.
Y'all have any questions for me at all?
I think we're
You don't
good.
mind
I was
giving
gonna hang out till the end back. Y'all about halfway through the agenda.
I know.
And I hadn't had dinner yet.
Me either, and I'm sitting up here like, oh, I should eat before I got here.
Dinner?
Well, it's important for us to do the right thing here. I hope you do critically understand that.
Oh, yes, sir. I
I
understand.
mean, we want it done right, and I know you do from a financial standpoint, but it's our community too, and we're trying to get the best job done that we can, and I'm sure that'll sell for you.
Yes, sir, absolutely, and we want to do the same thing. At the end of the day, we're not gonna put money before God. I know you did if you're here, you never do. You can go look at any of our communities and see that. We want to be a good neighbor.
Yeah.
So, that's, I understand. I missed the last meeting. I watched the whole thing on
6 or 7.
online.
Cool.
And that
We're
was,
getting more and more people doing
that was really neat. But I appreciate y'all.
Sometimes I think about my years.
Good deal.
If
Thank
you have any questions, call me at any
I
time.
only did a little over 3 years, but still, give me bad dreams. I just, yeah, I know, and the friends that I still have that still work there, how could they do it? And they've got another 15 to go. You go, oh my gosh. I just, it's tough.
I've seen some of that stuff, or heard some of
Yeah, I
that stuff that you came down here.
I was telling somebody, I said, what's the, what are some of the funniest calls? And I tell them a couple that you still laugh to this day. You go, and then they all want to ask about the other ones. And I told them a couple of them. I'm listening to the headset, and 1, 2, 3 homicides. And you hear the lady going, her ex-husband, and she's laying there shot once. And he said, she's going in the background. No. And he says, hold on, I'll be right back. Bam. That's it. So you live with that stuff, And a lot of people don't understand.
Those ladies are not gonna put a rock.
Let's see.
If you drive
What time you gotta go?
I got 3 crews going to first, but I'm gonna ride up and see what's going on.
I'm going to the park to make sure it's cleaned up, tidied up tomorrow.
What time you going?
Well,
People's up here and on that
no,
table.
that's what time
They
I'm gonna
need to
get up
speak
there.
up. They
It'll
can
take
hear
me about an
back there. It's
hour.
like
I
fun.
I could meet you down there, and I could
I don't know what to say. Even Leanna, she can't hardly hear
the
that
houses
one.
are.
Or up here.
I've been on this.
I've never knew it going back there.
Never known.
Need something, you can't hear.
Now there's a,
Now, they were perfectly square.
Let's call our meeting back to order, please.
But they were perfectly square.
How are
And
you?
he had 25 tons of rock.
When you put the rock in, it created a water pond right there.
Well, we sit back and watch the houses. We swear to God that there's things.
it's possible.
We're not sure.
It's possible.
Hey. No. I get it. Oh.
Okay,
Oh, where everybody go?
who we missing? Leanna and
Yeah.
Sherry?
Could I have that other mint?
I think we're gonna be better off with these people doing everything for us than anything else. You got that, you won't be having this mark in. With 5,000
That's actually
square foot.
that's what I had.
That's right.
That's
Everything really nice.
Around the corner, around the corner.
Nobody didn't spend the money to have it done.
Okay, we'll start back over with, the regular business. One announcement to make, and, there is a county cleanup plan on, Saturday, April the 13th, which is the same day as our Easter egg hunt. Is that not correct? I don't know how much we can participate in that, but our thing doesn't start until the afternoon, so, but there will be some publication about that, and that's a great event. Thanks to Councilman Gowan and his wife and their efforts and bringing in some other people for working off their community service or whatever. We're getting some parts of town cleaned up, and that's critically important, but this will be a county-wide thing, and it's also a good thing. So I look forward to that. This time, Planning Department, Valerie?
Okay, I'm just gonna highlight the new things that are on that weren't from last time. So under subdivisions, the last two, we got a couple minor subdivisions that will be going to planning board on the 25th. One is to split into 3 parcels and the other is to allow, Duke Energy to do some substation work. Then under zoning map amendments, there is 2 new ones. The 795 Powhatan is the same one to go along with the subdivision plat prior, and that'll be going to planning board next time. And then, there'll be one that is a rezone, for, and also special use permit, because they're proposing a cluster subdivision to preserve some of the wetlands. So going from, I think it's going to R20, so it's right near the Mill Creek and Cottages one, but since a lot of it's wetlands, they're trying to cluster a little bit there. And then, obviously, we had Jones Road, Cole Road, and also a special use permit, 1425 Powhatan for phase 2 of the Wellens property solar farm. So that will be going before planning board, and then we'll come to you guys the following month.
Anyone have any questions in regard to the plan? Not, we'll move forward with streets. Councilman Triplett?
Oh, I have one, sorry. One to request to call a public hearing under that also. One of them that I had mentioned, it's the 795 Powhatan. And that is going from RA40 to R20. And want to do 3 single-family lots, but to try to just help expedite the process, even though it's not going to planning board until March 25th. Wanted to see if you guys would be okay with calling the public hearing now, so they don't lose a month and a half. So call the public hearing for April 15th, so that way it can move from planning board on March 25th to council on April 15th for the actual public hearing of the rezone.
We need a motion for that?
Correct, yes.
I make a motion that we have a public hearing for the rezoning request.
Motion been made by Councilman Triplett and seconded by Councilman Jernigan. All in favor? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things on Country Valley. We're getting there. Randy's been talking with Cleo and his family. We've been doing some work with Herman Vincent. We're probably gonna give him a week or 2 since his brother just passed away. So he has the deed for the property, and he's gonna rewrite it. He's gonna, we're pretty sure he's gonna sign a new deed so that we can put it to the county. My word, I can't register it with the county. And then, did we get to work on Pritchard done or on Oleander done yet? That we were talking about.
Coriander.
Coriander,
Yeah,
yes.
We did.
They've done all the stumps and everything over there.
Yeah, and that's all I have right now.
Okay, any other comments about streets? Not, we'll move into events. Philip?
The Silver Stars, they're still having their meetings on the 1st and 3rd of the month, last, February 26th. Did a no soap color thing and had lunch scheduled in from Mayfield, chicken barn. And they got planning their spring activities and so forth, coming up in March the 20th. The event board met at the park last meeting to lay out how they were planning the Easter egg hunt, extravaganza hunt and so forth. And I think they pretty well got their plans laid out as what they want and what's gonna be taking place at that. And not a whole lot of update on the community park.
They've been doing a little bit of work over there, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure it was them or the, subdivision next door, because they had their equipment back there in the very back. And that's where we saw the crack open.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, they've got a hole dug back there, as big as this room there about.
Okay.
and DD two.
I did contact Glenn Davis last week before I was out of town to have the service reconnected at the park for the Easter egg hunt. He'll have that done.
No, he's not.
I said he will have it done.
No, he won't. He called me and told me that it was the town's responsibility to have service reconnected. And, go from there.
Okay, well, I didn't know about
And-
that part.
Well, he called me one day last week.
Must have been
First
right
part of
after
the
he
week,
talked to
wanted
me.
them that I spoke to you about it Monday.
I think so. You were gonna talk to him when you talked to me. Is that what? is that
I hadn't
what you
talked to him since then. That's been anyway, a couple of days. My thoughts were to run a permanent line from the, meter, not the meter box, but the panel box beside the building out to the pole and leave it hooked up permanently.
I don't disagree with you at all. I just thought it was a time frame here that we were trying to get that expedited for the Easter egg hunt.
We got a month.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't know if you want to hook up the service pole and then call Duke the other hook back there. They didn't charge us last time they hooked it up, they're gonna charge us this time.
They might not.
I doubt it.
But anyway,
They told me they normally charge, they wouldn't do it this time.
I'll leave that up to you.
I don't see why we don't put a permanent.
Huh?
I don't see why.
The
we
only
don't put a
difference is there's only a 200 amp service on that building. And I don't know what that, we got to discuss what's gonna be used for that in the future. And then when you add the rugby fields and all those lights and all that, 200 amp service will not handle that.
You're gonna have to
They're
put
not
new
gonna hook
service
up
in
to
for
that
that.
side of that building, not the rugby field.
Mhm.
I know
They
that.
can't.
But we're still talking about the park. A couple of us discussed some things that I brought up, and I think I ought to bring them back up again for the benefit of everybody, so it goes on the record. It was answered sort of to my satisfaction. The thing with the new swing, the chains are too short. Remember, we discussed this. I just want to get it on the record. The chains are too short. I know my 12 and 8-year-old, 8 and 6-year-old grandchildren were over there the other day. They loved the park, but they couldn't touch the ground when they get on the swing. They needed help getting up on the swing seats. So don't look at me like that.
And you
I
had.
didn't-
Okay, I thought you were looking at me
No,
for some
we
reason.
talked about that when
Okay.
the events committee met out there, because all of us were having trouble touching the ground. We were trying to-
Oh, good. Okay. The other thing was, there was some damage. Who knows how it was done, but you know that one where they all get up and it swings
Yeah,
around like that? There's a panel that's broken or damaged up top.
We contacted the company to see if we can get a replacement. And they're supposed to be letting us know if they can just send us the replacement for that, because those pieces are bolted in.
Is it under warranty still? Parts?
It
not labor?
is, but if it was hit, it doesn't look like it just broke. I mean, something would have had to have hit that, because there's no other parts of that moving piece that are messed up,
Okay.
you know.
It was either hit with a rock or
Yeah,
shot out with a BB gun or something.
Okay. So we don't know if it's under warranty or not. You get it replaced.
well, not for that part. I mean, it's still under warranty as far as some of the equipment.
It's not under
malfunctioning.
warranty
Okay.
as negligence.
Manufactured.
Right,
Right.
but that
If it's a
looks like
manufactured
a rock
defect,
hit
it would be.
which is
So, but
probably-
that's being taken care of.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, very
Thank
good.
you.
And I actually went up the other day and the seesaws that were already broke, I removed those because I was passing by it one day and kids were just running up one side and going down the other, and I just, they needed to be removed, so I went ahead and got them
Took
down.
your toy and went home, right?
Yeah.
Good job. Okay, anything else, Philip?
No, I'm through.
All right, we'll move forward. Councilman Eason, sewer.
I can tell you more about what we need to do than what we've done. We're finishing our last bore over on, Main Street and Jones Road. That's the last one. They're hooking most of your services up. They've done them all on Powhatan until they got to Ronnie's house. They liked from Pritchett to the end. I think it's about 7 or 9 services that we've got to go bore under the road and hook those up. We've done the ones on Main Street for Yeah, we've done Main, but we've done Wilson Hills Road, the only thing we like is we like to finish Poplar Drive, Pear Tree Lane, Swift Creek Road, and is about 400 or 500 foot over at Coriander to be done, to be finished up. Hopefully, we're gonna finish it up before May 1st. That would be what I'd say. But we've got to figure out how are we gonna tell the people, because every one of them now is asking.
We're gonna talk about that at the meeting on the 28th. About
With,
the course, coordinating the information going out to the people who purchase taps, because everybody wants to know when they can hook it up, but we have to coordinate that with the county inspections, so.
and when they buy the permit for that tap, the town has to send a check. Get
So
all
that
that
all has
stuff,
to be coordinated with the
right,
county.
everything has to go. But everybody's wanting to know when they can hook up. When are you gonna be able to let us hook up? I said, when the project's finished. And that's what the contractor wanted. He wanted to finish the project, get everything tested, and then when people started hooking up, he would warranty the line for 1 year.
Makes sense to me.
Any other?
That's it. Except, I'll have to get back to street right quick, because Poplar Drive and Pear Tree Lane, you're gonna have to pave those streets. When Ralph goes back in and paves the places that he has messed up, the rest of the road is gonna be so bad, they're gonna be down here complaining. It's gonna be a
Just like my
complaint.
road.
Yes, worse than yours.
It'll be just like mine.
Go up there and look at it.
They can wait just like I can.
The asphalt on that road, when it was originally put in, is not even an inch deep. But they did have a base under it.
Well, as long as he'll go back in and do the second time, like he did the second time at my house, instead of just,
Well, he won't. Ralph's not gonna do the second time.
well, he had to come back and do mine the second time.
I know,
But
but,
if he'll do that the first time over there, he won't have a problem with it.
well, he's gonna do it. He's got a 10-inch base, and he's gonna put probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches of asphalt on it. But he's putting a thicker base than what they've already got. But what he's doing is gonna make it bad on the other portion of the road, the other half of the road.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
But
They can do that on my
he's gonna do his job. And the other thing on sewage was, I don't know if now is a good time to bring it up or not.
Well, you're talking about the extension or the cutoff at Poplar and Pear Tree. I think we need to talk about it on the 28th first and make sure with USDA
We can do it
that
with the
everything.
loan thing.
Yeah,
Okay,
and not to try to keep it from you, but there's some questions about where the sewer line may or may not go out there at Poplar, and
And an
we've got to get
extension
with
I want to add.
USDA about the budget.
Jones Road.
On Pear Tree.
On Pear Tree.
I want to add an extension on Pear Tree, but we had due to money issues at the time, we have a problem on Poplar, but we'll discuss that on
The 28th.
the 28th, the sewer meeting.
Okay.
We'll talk to the engineer. That's it.
Thank you very much. Councilman McGowan, police report.
I defer to Chief Williams for the report. Chief?
We had a death investigation of an 84-year-old female who was found in her residence back in early February. At this time, still no cause of death. Autopsy report is still pending. We did a security evaluation at Believers Baptist Church off of Sutherland Road. Went very well. We welcome the opportunity to talk to other churches in the community to look at their security and some weaknesses that they may have also. Officer Benjamin Deese was sworn in on February the 11th. He's our newest officer. Well, he was our newest officer. He fills an open full-time position, and now we have 6 full-time officers. Additionally, we had 2 part-time officers that were currently in the latter stages of their administrative process to be hired. One was recently hired, So now we have another additional part-time officer that was just hired. His name is Alex Jeffries. We addressed the Wilson's Mills parking safety problem. That's right in front of the farmer's market. Citizens voiced a concern that the traffic on Sunday afternoons was real heavy on both sides of the road, causing a traffic problem when people try to cross the street to go to the market. One individual almost got hit by a car. I talked to the business owner. He said he was going to talk to the people who actually run the auction and see if there was something they can work out as far as maybe having cars parked in the back. Try to handle it that way, rather than put up no parking signs. We'll see what happens there. We checked into and verified there was an unauthorized group home off of Clearwater Drive. Notified the planning department and a violation order was issued. So hopefully that problem will be remedied and the group home will be moved. Trash and debris cleanup conducted by volunteers, Councilman and his wife, each Saturday is still ongoing. Now we actually have the community service component integrated with it. And they're also assisting with the trash pickup each Saturday. We conducted a lockdown active shooter drill at the elementary school about a week or two ago. Went very well, much better than last year, I'm told. And this time, the students, the faculty and staff, excellent. And they need to be commended for the way they responded. We assisted in a Highway 70 vehicle accident involving a probation officer and a arrestee in the vehicle. There were no injuries, but the state vehicle was damaged and needed to be towed. That was a single car accident. And lastly, we had 1,283 calls for service in the community during the month of February. 58 of those were vehicle stops. We issued 46 warnings and 15 citations. We're seeing a market increase in the traffic that's coming off of Powhatan onto Fire Department Road. Mostly just cut through traffic at the end of the day. So we're seeing more and more traffic coming directly through town. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Jernigan, maintenance.
Nothing really major other than the park stuff that needs to be replaced and the stuff that was taken down.
Okay. Financial report, Ms. Hudson?
Yes, sir, Mayor. In your package, you'll have the expenditure and revenue statement for February 2019 for your review.
I have a question. Page 5 and 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth item down. Shows that we're currently used 153% of our budget for, is that vehicles or equipment? Which one am I looking at? Is that something we're gonna have to, is that something we're gonna have to adjust?
Oh, yes, sir. We'll adjust it prior to the end of the fiscal year.
Okay.
And vehicle maintenance.
Yes, yeah, thank you, vehicle. Okay. What was, all right, why, out of curiosity, why were we up 153% on that? Is it police stuff?
Yes,
Okay.
we got 3 vehicles over 100,000
Okay,
miles
all right.
and 1 approaching 100.
Okay, it's not the green ghost out there.
No, it's not included. They had repairs also.
Thank you.
Okay, what's this thing, Ms. Hudson, about?
Okay, also in your package, you'll find that I have written a proposal up for accounting software that we are in need of because of our utility billing service that we're gonna have to eventually get into, and it's gonna be required by the town. So, I was asked to give proposals, and so I did, and so I've written, what I have proposed here, I've laid it out very simply as to what we currently have and the software companies that I have been in contact with. They have showed demonstrations. I've gotten pros and cons on some that are listed on here and some that are not. So, but at any rate, it's up to the board to decide if they want to move forward with this.
And we gotta remember that our software has gotta take, and it's gotta come into effect probably May 1. So we can start billing for sewage.
In hers, not, they don't have capability, software capability to bill.
They do, Mr. Phillip, however, our current software company was, whenever I had asked on the listservs, the financial and the clerk's listserv in reference to their financial software, I was, and got feedback from different clerks and different different finance officers throughout the state. Harris, our current, what we currently use, they were not recommended at all. And it's because their lack of support. Even Leanna and I have, since I've been on board, Leanna and I both have had an issue with this ourselves. Because every time I would email them or contact them in reference to a question, they were always wanting to send a proposal back of how much it's gonna cost to answer that question. And to me, that's just not good.
With respect to Southern software that you're recommending, did you speak with other users of Southern?
Oh, sure.
And did they have any negatives?
No.
Really? All positives?
Mm-hmm. Sure have.
Now, if we were to choose this software company tonight, it would take them close to a month. You and them together close to a month to get prepared to do what we want to do, because we want to do what we call a dry run. We want to run some copies out before that. I mean, and you gotta have a schooling too.
Right.
You gotta have people to come in.
From what I understand, Mr. Johnny, I asked that question specifically to Southern Software. And they says, once the proposal is signed off on, that we could then, we would have what they called a kickoff meeting and then have the software installed in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
Mhm.
So that'll put us to April 1st.
Certainly by the 10th of April anyway.
10th, 15th. I'll have to have something in place before May 1. If we do start billing.
Is, I'm just guessing here, obviously they want the full amount up front, right?
They do not.
All right, tell me about that and how can we hold something back?
Well, such as In Focus, I mean, you know, they've always worked with small municipalities, and they're willing to stretch it out over a couple of budget years.
Really?
Mhm.
That one initial fee?
But you're still gonna have a maintenance cost each year.
A maintenance cost each
Yeah,
year.
We'll have a
yes.
maintenance cost
But we
each
can't
year.
spread that out. Well, that's heartening.
I would,
And how quick are they with, how quick, what?
There's a spider.
Oh, almost, there's a spider. How quick are they, or how responsive are they to, if we develop problems, like just before we go online for, we go live, we have a problem, do we have to, are we in line?
It was real low.
I got it.
Oh, good, good. Or do we have to get in line, or do they have a dedicated IT rep for us that'll come right out?
Oh,
or-
sure.
Okay, cool. All right. I don't have any problem with it.
Because we're gonna need the billing for the monies to pay this loan.
Yeah, right. All right, if there's no other questions,
I make a motion that we accept Southern Software and we can leave the financing up to the office.
Motion's been made by Councilman Eason to accept the bid for the software that we need to upgrade for our billing.
second.
By Councilman Eason and seconded by Councilman McGowan. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Good job. Thank you very much. You have anything else from the financial end of it? If not, we'll move forward. Ms. Leanna, Town Administrator's report.
This kind of has to do with finance, so a little segue into mine is that, Sherry and I have been looking at some of the stuff with the budget coming up. And we've normally already had one budget session by now, kind of a wish list session that y'all do in the very beginning, but since we had the meeting on February 14th to get ready for the long range plan and the long range plan meeting, I think we kind of know where we're going with that, but y'all need to go ahead and look at, scheduling your first actual budget session. And we're hoping to do this in 2 or 3 this year, no more than 2 or 3. Even with everything we've got going on, I think we've got a pretty good idea of where you all want to go this coming year and what money we have to do it with. So is that something that you all would want to go ahead and call tonight, or do you want to look at your calendars and then I can publicize it? Either, I'm fine with either way, but.
What's the pleasure?
Let's go ahead and get it locked in tonight.
You want to do just one tonight and
Well,
then,
if you can go it like we normally do, if you can go ahead and call the first one, and then at each one, you'll just recess until the next one and announce when the next one's gonna be. If that still works for
are they gonna be a
everybody.
month apart?
I mean, we can see how things go on the first one, but probably so. We'll do one this month and one in April. We should be able to get by with one more, maybe do some work at the, May meeting as well, and then approve the budget in June. So if we do something in March, obviously we're gonna be looking at next week, if you wanna do something next week or, the first week of April. Which days, again,
Monday and Tuesday for me is the best.
Monday and Tuesday are the best for you, and Randy,
27th, 28th, or the 1st and 2nd of April will be the 4 days.
27th and 28th is a Wednesday
It's
or
a Wednesday and Thursday, that Monday and Tuesday on the 1st and 2nd.
Monday, the 1st is the events committee meeting, so, what about Tuesday, April 2nd? Is that good with everybody?
Good with me.
And what time can you
Karen,
get here? Jeff?
Karen, we don't have a doctor's appointment that day.
No, no.
Okay. The 2nd of April, that's a Tuesday, right?
It's Tuesday.
Yep.
Tuesday, April 2nd, and what time can you be here?
Anytime after 12.
Oh, okay, so do y'all want to do it in the afternoon or in the evening?
That'll be good with me.
Okay, that'd be great with us.
2 o'clock?
That'll be
2 o'clock on Tuesday, April 2nd. And if you could, call, since that's gonna be a special meeting, do a motion to call for that.
I hear a motion to call a special meeting for a budget session on Tuesday, April the 2nd at 2 o'clock.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Jernigan,
I'll say.
second by Councilman Eason. All in favor?
Aye.
See you at 2 o'clock on the 2nd of April.
I don't have anything on the agenda, but I have a couple of things real quick. I just wanted to, tell you about the the Smithfield Town Clerk who came in and assisted with helping up the room, helping set up the room Saturday for our retreat. I sent her a thank you card and a gift card, and she wanted to make sure that I thanked council for that, and that, she was blessed to have the opportunity to meet all of you. Mr. Anderson, did you want to go over this now, about the elections?
Yeah, I'd be glad. I don't know if people had a chance to look at this when they came in, or if I just start from scratch. There was some discussion at the retreat about coming up with a couple options for staggering the election cycles. And this turned out to be a real puzzler for me. I'm not smart enough to do this sort of thing in the abstract. I don't think. I ended up having to take some yellow Post-it notes and write Johnny and Randy and JC and all the way across on them and kind of put them over the 3 years period and just kind of move them around. And then I finally called my wife and said, "Hey, have I got this right?" And she said, "I think so." So anyway, I came up with two options, and one involves taking one of the council elections that'll come up in 2023. There's no way to do it that solves it real quick because of the way we're staggered. We're going to have to go ahead, and it's going to take a few years to do it. So there's not a great urgency in getting this thing drawn up in a resolution. But as I see it, we can make one of the people who runs in 2021 to the top two vote getters will get 4-year terms ending in 2025, and the lower vote getter will get a 2-year term ending in 2023. And so then when you get to 2023, you've already accomplished the magic thing of having a 3-and-3 split. The other way to do it is to take the mayor's term and run it from 4 years to 6 years and have it ending 2023 so that it gets him onto that year. I can't come up with another way. I thought it was going to be 3 options, but those are the 2 we've come up with. And I don't know if anybody else thought of another way to do it. But again, this is not anything that's absolutely urgent because it's going to be a while before we pull it off. Anyway, so I don't have to have any action on it tonight. If y'all want to just think about it and tell me what you think maybe next time, and then we can come forward with a proposed, a resolution of intent regarding the charter change at some time reasonably soon.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I think we do the easiest way. And the easiest way, in my opinion, is to extend the mayor for 6 years. I mean, I don't see where that seems to me to be not only the easiest, but the simplest. And that puts you in a 3-3 run every year. And that doesn't change anything with the town council members. We just make the mayor a 6-year thing right now, and then we're in the 3-3 election cycle.
I agree with you. I like that too. The downside on option 1 to me is
a person running, you only get a 2-year.
The lower vote getter will get a 2-year term. And then what we're telling you is if you score the lowest in this popularity contest, you only get 2 years. You got to turn around and go through this whole election thing in 2 more years. I don't like that. I think the easiest way is the mayor's already.
Plus, we got a good mayor.
And he's indicated a willingness to do that. And I think it's a good deal. He's fallen into the job, and he's doing well. Moving along and keep him there. There's a learning curve here. All right, there's a learning curve for a lot of things. Like Johnny Eason doing sewer, there's a learning curve there. Whether he runs again or not, if there has to be somebody else new doing sewer, don't look my way.
Why?
Because I don't know a thing about it except I push that little handle and it all goes bye-bye. And I'm not worried. Now, do I know something about police work? Yeah, I do. So we all have our own little areas, but the mayor's got a learning curve too, and I'd like to take advantage of that.
One thing to think about is I won't be here, and you might not be here, and a lot of us might not be here, but 1 year you might not have a mayor that's as good as this one.
Okay.
You might not win him on for that long.
I think I sort of said that in different words, but it works that way.
So So what do we want to do it now?
Let's-
I'll bring y'all a resolution back. I'll make him king for life if that's what you want.
Let's bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay.
I just read over it a little bit.
Right.
And when we bring it back, could you come back with wording for whichever resolution we adopt? So what, we don't have to sit there and go, what do we say?
Well, yeah, we'll put the resolution on the agenda for the following meeting. It won't be doing it on the fly.
Okay. Mayor, how do you feel about that? You kind of told us about it last couple of weeks ago, but you haven't, you're kind of mum tonight.
Well, it wasn't any point in me talking. It's just a matter of me making the decision. And I'll do that between now and the next meeting if I want to extend it to 6 years.
Fair enough.
I will agree that the learning curve is definitely applies to all of us. So we'll see how it moves forward.
It takes more than 1 year to learn it too.
Yes, it does. Okay, at this time, we'll go into our second open forum at 9:35. Anyone wishing to speak about anything, come to the podium, state their name, and you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. I'm JD Holmes.
You gotta sign in.
Okay, I'm gonna sign in. No pen.
It's on the floor.
Here you go, here's one.
He's got.
I am, Janet husband, and we live at 717 Oswald Pond Road. I wanted to know, why isn't the sewer coming down our way? I know you had to stop somewhere, but we used to live in Colorado when somebody may know Floyd Corbin, Janie Corbin, when he passed away. We were gonna sell the home, but then we decided to come back in this area because we like this area. And we got here, our neighbor said he applied to get sewer to come to his house, which is one house over from us. So we assumed y'all were coming that way. Then we found out that whoever was handling that is no longer has a job here for whatever reason.
Yeah.
That's not true. Well, I don't know what happened to the application, but I want to know why they're not coming our way.
Funding.
Well, that makes a lot of sense.
Money. That's the biggest one. You're down Other Pond.
Yeah, first house on the left.
Now, I'll have to see how far first house on the left.
It's a white house and there's a brick house beside
Floyd
us.
Corporate's old house.
Floyd's old
Yeah,
house.
Floyd's old house.
Okay, and you're right behind the property we
Yes.
we put in the thing today.
Yes.
We're working up there at the intersection.
I know you are. That's why I wanted to ask you. You weren't coming down there.
But money is the issue. And if we had the money, we would do it because it's just gonna be a short street from there to Clearwater. Johnson Farms, I think, has some sewage. I'm not sure. But
When did you buy the
eventually,
house?
and I'm not gonna say right now,
Inherited it,
We knew, how long have you been there?
3 years.
No, probably weren't there when you,
No, we weren't.
no, because we've been working on this 6 years.
But see, then we found out from Nelson, who was our neighbor, he had applied. And he told us it was coming down. Next thing we found out, he said, no, it's not coming down. So that's why we're here tonight.
Yeah.
We're limited in our acreage there. And Janie had a septic problem. It was in the backyard. Now it's in the front yard, but eventually that's gonna be a problem.
Right.
As wet as it gets over there.
Yeah, so we have no other option.
What's your address again?
717 Oswald Pond Road. When you go down Oswald Pond with the first house on the left, the White House.
This is probably 1,000 yards from where we're at now.
Yeah, it's not far.
But
It's far in sewer though.
I know it's not expensive, but you have two houses there you could add if you wanted to.
Probably, if we decide to go down that road, we're gonna take a survey. We'll have a survey. We'll run a survey on who wants sewage. And we'll see how many people want it, and that's gonna determine on where we put it down there or not. We got another street that wants it, but I'm asking for 100% participation because there's only 8 people on that street.
I know. The second is,
We're gonna make that turn and go up towards Sheridan Drive, and we're gonna put a pumping station up in Sheridan Drive eventually. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be tomorrow or the next week, but eventually we're gonna put a pumping station up at Sheridan Drive and pump it back down to Jones Road and take in some customers over there. It might be accessible then, to do yours because all we'd have to do is gravity down
Right.
to where we're at now, if it's deep enough.
And you wouldn't have to go into the road. I mean, we're right on
We'll
that side.
take, yeah, well, we're gonna go, we'll
Except-
probably work on state easements anyhow.
Okay. Since I got 3 minutes, I got 2 more things. The second thing is, I guess, addressed to you. I am really tired of people dumping their trash in my yard. And I don't know what you can do about it. We get like those green trash bags. They just throw them out. I saw baby diapers in my front yard, everything. And I'm constantly picking it up. It's a straight road, y'all know. I mean, it's hard for a patrolman to sit there and watch. And people run those stop signs
And it's Jones.
all the
I mean,
time.
everybody, not just one or two, but everybody. I saw.
You know, Janet and I were talking the other day. We would love to have the days when it was a dirt road again, and all you ever saw was a tractor and a pickup truck. But those days are not they're gone. So, you know, it's just really bad. And sometimes I back out. I'm really watching because people come through that stop sign, that crossroad, and they're flying. They're not doing 45, 35. They're doing 70 or more.
And you'd be surprised because it's a lot of county trucks pulling those excavators where they put in sewage or put in water or do repair work. I was at the job site yesterday, we were working on that board, and the county trucks come through it just like it won't now.
I know. So I don't know what you can be done. The former chief, I knew him years ago, and I had asked him, and they put somebody, is that Jones Road?
Yes. Yeah.
And he said he had permission to set somebody's yard, drive down there. But I don't know where you can go where people can't see you.
Let me ask you this, sir. I think I know more about trash in this town than anybody. I don't know. I clean up well, don't I?
You do.
What I would suggest is, do you both work during the day?
I work out of my house.
Okay. Let me write down your address. What I can do is I have a trunk full of, you have to pick this stuff up anyway, right?
I do.
All right, let's do this. I will come by your place sometime this week, and I will drop off several of the Orange County DOT trash bags.
Mm-hmm.
And since you're gonna pick it up anyway, pick it up and put it in that. Okay, and I'll give you my phone number. You can just send me a text and say, I got 2 bags out there. And on Monday morning, when I call DOT to come pick up the bags that the community offenders put out, I'll just put yours too and they'll take it. So I can't get them to stop, and neither can the chief promise to get these people to stop because they're horrible. Okay, I've had them do it I've had them do it one time within sight of me. So that's how brazen they are. But at least we can get it picked up for you, not picked up, but you pick it up there, we'll get it taken care of for the county, give it to the county to take care of. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, I travel a lot, so it'd be,
Well,
sporadic, just so you know.
If it's.
But the problem I have.
If you give me the address again, I'll write it down.
Okay.
And I'll just leave them somewhere, on the front porch or wherever.
Okay.
You'll find them, and I'll leave my phone number with it too, and you just send me a text and say, I got 2 bags this time. I'll get them to pick it up for you.
I even asked the former chief if I could, get a phone number, because I've been behind them when they throw the stuff out.
Yeah.
And, but the legalities of that is.
Yeah, sometimes it's not worth
It's
it.
not, I can't do anything.
Sometimes I've gone through those bags and literally looking for prescription bottles, looking for
Names, yeah.
anything but names. They're stupid. Or
Do
an
we have
address.
signs up on that street?
No.
Litter
I
signs?
don't think
Oh,
so.
there's, yes,
Oh, is it?
there is one right after you cross over from Main Street over to Ozell Pond. There's one in
That's
that
where they used
area.
to dump
Yeah,
the
am I
woods
right,
and
Chief?
stuff.
Do you recall one? There's one on Main Street, the where it curves around on the other side of the tracks. There's one right there.
That used to be a dump.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna have it
Really?
picked up this Saturday. They
Not
used to dump
No,
it.
sir.
Illegal dump.
Yeah.
People
And
would just go back and throw their trash
Yeah,
bags.
and they're still doing it. So out of sight, they'll throw it anywhere, but
Not like they did.
yeah.
Right.
So I'll get that picked up, that part this week, but
Or I could get
nevertheless.
one of those guys to run down there with an excavator and dig a hole and you can just go.
And then when you have the septic failure, you already got the hole.
There you go. Okay,
Okay.
while I got the floor, just one quick thing. Why is Uzzle's Pond got 2 different names on both ends of the road? One's got an S and one doesn't.
That's the county for you. It's not because our name is
I've been
changed.
wondering, where do I live?
Whoever made the sign forgot to put this on
I'm
it.
just wondering.
Some Wilson's Mill signs have a possibility and some don't.
Hold on a second. Go ahead, I'm just gonna give my name and phone number.
If you do find a piece of mail or something in that trash when you're going through it, just get with the chief or get with Valerie and they can go through it like that.
9
'Cause
times
I
out
had
of
the same-
10, they're going to Johnson Farms.
Mhm.
They're always usually coming by this way. And anyway,
When you call with the stuff or send me a text or whatever, give me your full name and everything so I can put it in my contacts and I'll know who you are every time you call, all right?
okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'll bring it to you.
Anybody else? We'll close it.
As soon as we get close to you, we'll let you know.
All right,
Honestly.
sounds good.
Second open forum at 9:30, 9:44.
Make a motion, we go into executive session.
We're going to close this.
Motion's been made to go into closed session.
First.
Thank y'all for coming.
Second.
Well, I thought maybe you might.
Yeah, I can get to you.
How are you?
All
Good to
right,
see
how are
you.
you? It's good to see you too. We've all grown up now.
Oh, yeah. Just a day or two.
It was home.
Well, okay, so it's just the Holmes residence and it's
717.
717.
First house on the left.
Holmes,
House
okay.
on the left.
That is not a
Okay,
pressure.
thank
I
you.
agree.
Thank you. Good to see you.
You too.
300. There's a manhole there.
Yeah, right.
These folks are.
Yes, what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Cause that's the line, that's the same road. That's Mill Road. Yellowstone up here. That they cut through first.
Oh, was that all?
I see you fixing up the town hall.
I mean, Old Mill Village, yeah. Yellowstone Road goes through, but Old Mill Village, that's the same one they're looking at. It flows out and goes.
I got
This one right here.
Well, this was a mill road.
No, this is what's right
right.
that curve right there, Main Street, where it cut back on Kenny's property, right there, railroad track. Then they poured that first hole under the railroad track and cut back to the right, so they could put these two subdivisions on.
That whole stretch.
That's Northwood.
Is it North?
That's Johnston Farm right there,
Okay.
and that right there is Clearwater.
How hard it is to keep it.
So,
You have to see if it's.
So you want to throw it out, grab a kind of deal, whatever, no.
because he's right there at,
It's.
All right.
Gee, no.
he's less than 200, 300 feet.
He wouldn't be but a manhole away.
Flies out there.
The camera's still on because I'm trying to connect.
Go to the bathroom. It
Turn it off.
Huge bags.
It's only a one hole.
Oh, yeah.
What?
They have great bags of it, like it sounds like he has.
Yeah, they do it down there. I've seen it.